Welcome to the Wilderness Podcast. I am your host, Trey, and today I'm joined by Mitty. Hello, Mitty. How you doing?
Good. How are you doing, Trey?
Oh, pretty good. It's a different vibe this time around. This is the first time I've recorded at night. It's winter time. It's about 7 o'clock, but the sun's already down. I got some very vibey lighting in the room right now. Usually record on like Sunday morning with a cup of coffee, but I'm recording during gamer hours right now, which is it's a little different. So if the tone of the show is different today, I don't know why it would be, but but how you doing? What are you up to?
Doing good. Currently just running some agility laps, but in game, still going for the quiver. So doing some Coliseum. It's been an adventure, to say. I recently got my Infernal Cape, and that was like one of my best highlights of RuneScape, I would say. And so, going right out of the Inferno, a lot of people told me, you should just go straight into Coliseum. And so I tried it, and I've been sending some attempts. I think I'm probably 65 attempts in now. I've seen Soul, I think about 8 or 9 times, with my PB being Soul at 25%. So it's been fun. Coliseum's definitely some good content. So
I remember I was thinking about this today because I was like, all right, kind of thinking about what me and you would talk about. And I remembered being in a voice chat maybe 6 months or a year ago or something. And no, it was early this year, because it was when I started going for Inferno, and, I was talking to somebody in voice chat, and I remembered you saying something along the lines of, I'm totally fine that I'm never going to get an Infernal Cape. I just can't dedicate that much time to it. So what changed there?
Yeah. It's funny. I had said that a lot, actually. I was like, you know what? I'm cool with the cheesecake. Like, it's fine. I'll rock it for the rest of my life. So just to give a little bit of context, my wife and I just had our daughter, or I say just, but it's been almost a year now. She's just turned 11 months yesterday. So we had our daughter, and I always wanted an Infernal Cape. I thought it'd be super cool. And then we had her, and I was like, I'm just not going to have enough time to do it. From what I'd been told, like, every Inferno attempt is like 2.5 hours. And I just thought there's absolutely no way that I could ever even just sit down and play for 2.5 hours. So I just kind of like wrote it off for a while. And that's what I told everybody. I said, it's okay. I don't think I'll ever need it. I don't know if I even want it that bad to dedicate time. And I honestly have no idea what caused me to actually start sending attempts. I think someone just said, "Oh, Mitty, when are you gonna do the Inferno?" And I was like, I'll just jump in really quick and I'll see. And I made it to like wave, I don't know, maybe like 20 or something like that on my first ever like jump in. And I was like, that was actually a little bit more fun than I had thought that it was going to be. And so that week I started watching some guides and just kind of like seeing if the Inferno was actually doable. And, I just started watching him at work, like while I was like at lunch or whatever, just watch some like AddyCon or No Monkey videos or whatever it was. And I started thinking, this may actually be somewhat achievable. And the thing that definitely pushed me over, there's 2 things for sure. So my daughter started sleeping all the way through the night with no wake ups. So we'd put her down at like 7:30 to 8 o'clock our time. And she'd stay at like sleep through the night until 7 a.m. the next morning. So my wife and I were like, yes, we finally get our nights back. So we had, a couple, like I would have a couple of hours every night to hop on RuneScape or like watch movies with her or whatever we were doing. And so that kind of gave me the freedom to start actually sending some real attempts. And so, that's kind of the long story about how I went from oh no, I don't need Inferno to now I have my cape, and it is great. So
Inferno is really cool. I catch so much shit in our clan because people are always say that I started an Iron Man because I was trying to avoid Inferno. And maybe that's how it started, but I fully intend to. I've been asking myself if I feel like I'll have to get it on my main before I get it on the Iron, but it doesn't even. I don't know. At this point, I've just been so dedicated to the Iron. It doesn't even feel like it would mean anything to get it on the main, but it would definitely be helpful with the extra gear and stuff just to see everything and to go through it. Were you a part of this, kind of the new blood of, did you do all the sims and stuff to prepare for it?
So funny enough, I had sent like maybe a couple of sims of the Zuck simulator. I think I'd sent maybe like 2 or 3 attempts on the simulator. I actually hate them. It's so, and it's nothing against the people that made the sim. It looks phenomenal, and it's much better than what it was back in the day. But for me, I don't know if it's like my internet connection or whatever, but man, it is so laggy for me. Like I click a brew and it doesn't register for like 2 or 3 seconds, and I'm like clicking a brew in the simulator. And I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I don't even need this simulator. So I don't have a single completion on a Zuck simulator. I do have some on the Coliseum simulator, so don't hate me there. But yeah, I did not use a sim, which is surprising enough. So.
Well, I'm sure somebody out there will say that means your cape is more genuine. I don't see it that way, but no,
a cape is definitely a cape. I think for Inferno, for me, like how my journey went, the waves were definitely the hardest part of the Inferno. The first time I got to triple Jads, I killed them. I've never died to triple Jads, and I died to Zuck one time. So I got my cape on my second Zuck attempt. But I will say it did take me a lot of attempts in the waves. And it's just learning how to solve them was really the hardest part. Zuck is not going to say it's not a hard boss, because it definitely is, and it has a one-shot mechanic, which is like always terrifying. But it actually, for me, it wasn't the hardest part. When I made it past triples, I really thought, I was like, okay, I can actually do this. Like on my first attempt, I felt really confident on it, and then my second attempt, when I made it past triples, I was like, yeah, I can do this again. Like I got Zuck so low on my first attempt that I can definitely do this. So in my opinion, the sim, I mean, it helps. It kind of gives you like a guide on how to actually do the Inferno. But for me, like I watched, like I said, I watched a ton of YouTube videos. I watched the No Monkey Adicon videos. Adicon has a really good First Cape Friday series on his YouTube channel, and he has like maybe 10 or 15 Inferno attempts inside, like with budget gear, just walking through the Inferno, and like he kind of just breaks down the waves as he solves them. So he goes, here's why I'm doing exactly what I'm doing, which again is like the biggest part of Inferno, is just trying to understand how to actually solve the waves. But yeah, so that was really all I did, was just I consumed so much Inferno content on my phone at work that when I got to Zuck, I was like, oh yeah, whenever this happens, I have 3.5 minutes until the next set spawns, and then I want to do this if I get close to that 3-minute timer or whatever it is. And I actually can't remember what the time is. To be honest with you, I don't remember how long you have between sets. But when I was doing it, I had a very good idea of it. So that was kind of a long-winded answer there, but
yeah. So you did one of what I consider one of the ballsiest things, which is you sent almost all of your attempts, and same with Coliseum, in voice chat with people watching. I'm, I guess streamers, that's how streamers do it. But man, I remember, I kind of, said on the podcast I was going for Inferno. We talked about it, and I did the same thing. Like, I talked to everybody about it. I even, since I'm a moderator, I was able to start a entire Inferno channel in our clan, and I made this big hoopla about it. And then I was realized very quickly that was a huge mistake for me, because I put all this pressure on myself, because I was like, oh, everybody's watching me. But yeah, I was all that to say, I was in voice chat when you had you got to Zuck for the first time, and you had pretty heartbreaking defeat there. And if I remember correctly, it was the next day you got your cape. I wasn't there for it, but it was a spectacular down to the wire finish. So spectacular, in fact, that you ended up sending it into Behemoth, which, for those who don't know, Behemoth is a YouTube channel that's kind of like the clips of the day of the RuneScape community. I love watching it, just seeing what everybody's doing. But can you talk about that getting the cape, that crazy moment?
Yeah, so it was pretty wild. I'm not gonna lie. So I'm gonna get a little technical here with like some terms, but on a very generalized scale, my cape was very, 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 very lucky. Essentially what happened was, at the very end of Zuck, I made it past healers. And so I basically have to finish off Zuck. So I have a major that's already on me. And so basically I'm praying mage, and there's a major that's alive. And I have another set that's spawning. So when you're killing Zuck, there's a couple of different like phases to the Zuck fight itself. And one of the things is that a major and a ranger will spawn while you're killing Zuck and moving between moving with the shield, and you have to deal with them. And so basically what happened was I went and I tagged to just get the NPCs off of the shield, because you want to kill the NPCs, or at least tag them so that they start to attack you instead of the shield that you're walking behind. Because if you lose the shield, Zuck is going to one-shot you basically like 95% of the time. So you want to keep that shield up. And so at the very end of my cape, I had a ranger and a major spawn. And I'll get like into the like statistics and nerd stuff for everybody that like really loves numbers. But basically, at the very end, I tagged the ranger, and I took 4 range hits, and they all hit me. And I got down to 0 HP, but my health regenerated the same tick that Zuck died. And so I went from having 0 HP in game to 1 HP with a health regen. And so I actually stayed alive, and I got the cape, even though I technically died. So I got the whole sea engineer death, and I felt so defeated. And then I just hear one of the guys in VC go, "Oh my God, you got the cape!" And I look up and I see that I have 1 HP, and I'm thinking, wait, how does that even work? And so I watched back the clip, and it was just a crazy time and a crazy experience, man. It was probably one of the, like I said, probably the best feeling in game that I've ever had. Probably even from any video game ever, getting the Inferno cape, and especially such a like unique and crazy way. It was just so crazy. And to give to the like some statistics for anybody that's curious, so I was wearing full Missouri, and I had a T-bow that a friend of mine loaned me, which shout out to the friend. I really appreciate you for letting me use that twisted bow. That really helped. But so I was wearing full Missouri, and I was wearing a twisted bow. And so the ranger has a 1 in 4 chance to hit me. So 3 times out of 4, the ranger's going to hit a 0 on me. But one time out of 4, he's going to, roll whatever his max hit is on me. I can't remember off the top of my head what the actual max hit was. But I basically got hit 4 times, and he hit me all 4 times, and he near maxed rolled every single hit. So I went from like 95 HP. I took a 30, a 20, a 30, and then whatever my finishing HP was, it just destroyed me. And so that was incredibly unlucky to basically roll a 1 in 4 times in a row is like astronomical. It's not astronomical, but it's a very high, very, very low probability. And so to top it off with a health regen that's like probably 1 in a million, I would say, is just like, I'll never forget that cape in my life. And it was just incredible. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. The clip, it's wild because you just hear dying on my hardcore Ironman completed, collection log slot completed, just back to back like that. And usually that would be the worst thing you could ever hear. You imagine, dying, seeing an Ultor vestige on the ground and all those kind of moments. But it is, it was one of a kind. It's so cool. So me and you have talked about this, a bit, but like you went from what's considered the hardest content in the game to what's probably among, Coliseum is considered among probably the hardest, Blood Torv is up there, maybe like, 500 Imbo, Toa, that kind of stuff. But probably what would be generally considered the second hardest content in the game is Coliseum. I had said to you that, I'm an electrician and we have, the 2 kind of tests we have to take. There's the journeyman's test, and then you can test to be a master electrician. And the like time requirements are the same for those. So what a lot of people say they're going to do is they're going to pass their journeyman's, and then while they're all fresh with all the knowledge and the code and the numbers and stuff, they're going to go right and do their masters like back to back. And 99% of people don't do that because they get their journeymans, they pass their tests, they're so relieved, and they're just like, I don't want to feel that way again. I don't want to go through all of that. And I was telling you about that because I was comparing that to what you're doing, going straight from Inferno to Coliseum. And I feel like at one point when we had talked, you had maybe regretted that a little bit, but just before we started recording, you were like, well, let me send a colo attempt. So you're definitely still going strong on it. Did you have a point where you regretted doing that? Did you come around? Obviously you came around on that because you're still sending it.
Yeah. I don't know if regret is the right word. So I guess to also kind of go back to why I wanted to get an Infernal Cape. So I sent my first, I love TOA, and I've always loved TOA. It was my first real raid that I got into. And so recently I'd been sending some higher invos. I say recently, it's been probably a while since I got my Fang kit, but I got my Fang kit in solo 500, and that felt great. And so I was like, it actually felt really good to challenge myself to die and to get back up and see if I can get the next attempt. And it was one of those things that I really enjoyed pushing myself. And so going from my Fang kit to the Inferno, I probably took like 3 weeks or a month or something like that. And I really enjoyed the Inferno. I really enjoyed learning everything, just like I enjoyed learning TOA. I liked bumping all the invocations higher and getting to my first expert mode and getting to my first backpack where I'm shaking, and then, going all the way up to 400s and then 500. I absolutely loved the progression. It was so fun for me, and I loved being able to push the limit and watch strategies and watch videos on, if you have this gear, this is what invos you should be running. And then, and so it kind of just translated over to the Inferno as well. I just loved pushing myself. And, getting to my first wave 60s and then getting to 62 and then 63 and then getting to triples and getting to Zuck. Like the progression felt so great that I really loved it. And a lot of people had told me that, hey, you're fresh out of the Inferno. The mechanics from Inferno to Coliseum are pretty similar. They're definitely not the same. They're very, very similar, but very different at the same time. But you use a similar strategy of pillars in the Coliseum. And so I basically started sending some Coliseum attempts, and I got pretty far on my first couple of attempts. And so I said, maybe I should actually sit down and try to learn and send the Coliseum. And like I said in the beginning of the podcast, I'm probably 65 attempts deep with 8 to 9 soul attempts, and PB is 25%. So I don't regret doing it. It's definitely time consuming, and it's as all RuneScape players, your next goal is always the thing that you're thinking about. So when I'm taking a shower, I'm thinking about my last Coliseum attempt. When I'm driving home from work, I'm thinking about my last Coliseum attempt and what I could have done differently to get better and go further, basically. So it's definitely been a journey. I would say I actually really enjoyed Inferno a lot more than I enjoy Coliseum, which is very opposite from what all the people that I'm talking with and have, people give me some Coliseum advice. Everybody says that the Coliseum is God tier content and it's so fun. And, if you liked Inferno, you're going to love Coliseum. And I've gotten to Coliseum, and it might just be the fact that I've died to Soul 8 or 9 times, and it only took me 2 Zuck attempts that's where my, I wouldn't call it frustration, but I'll say frustration for now is coming from. But I definitely have been enjoying it a lot. And I'm at that point where I like content that pushes my ability, pushes my limits, and content that I'm dying and learning and struggling. It just gives a whole new breath of life to the game. So
yeah, it's really interesting. I remember as you're talking, I'm thinking about when Dakota was on this show, and he talked about that same kind of idea of feeling like you'll never get Inferno. Well, feeling like you'll never get Fire Cape even. And then but Inferno is the big one where it's feeling like you'll never get it and then getting it. And then that feeling of wow, that it felt so good to overcome that, and then kind of chasing that feeling. And he was describing that too as he wanted to go for Colo, he wanted to go for Blood Torva, and that's it's kind of the birth of a high level PVMer is realizing that that journey that so many people turn away from because it's so difficult, realizing that that is what's enjoyable is how difficult something is, and dying just as many times as those other people, but realizing the fun part is the overcoming of it. I mean, that's a whole different way of seeing the game that's not even really why I play the game, but I can see how that it just once that clicks for you, it's like a new addiction.
Definitely. Yeah. It's a new, I said so when I send Coliseum attempts as well, like I said, I think about them all the time. And it was the same way with Inferno, where it was just it just had my mind. I just loved thinking about how do I get better at this? How do I get better at this? And I just think as humans, we like to get better at things. I mean, that's just how we all are. You strive to be better at whatever you're doing. And so RuneScape is one of those things that you strive to be better. And I will say, a year ago from now, I didn't even think I could get a Fang kit. I was, sending 350s with my hand shaking in insanity in TOA. And I just thought I could never do it. And I never, ever thought that I could get an Infernal Cape. I've been playing 07 for a very long time. Probably started back in 2016 or 17. on old school RuneScape. And I remember when Inferno came out, and I actually remember listening to the podcast that Dills talked about the Inferno and how he was like, this content's way too hard. It just shouldn't be in the game. And I remember thinking, yeah, dude, why is it in the game? I'm over here shaking at Jad and I can barely get my fire cape. Why are they adding content that like 4 people can do? And I remember thinking that like so many years ago. And now like, it's just such a cool accomplishment that you can come so far in the game. And you can see yourself progress and get better and better. You know, I didn't go straight from my fire cape to the Inferno. I learned a lot of stuff. I learned how to raid. I learned a lot of mechanics during all the content. And I think Jagex does such a great job with that, with progression, especially nowadays with all the new like bosses and like, you know, like beginner level bosses. I think they do a great job with progression. And I think that really helps people strive to be better at the game, which is great. So
yeah, no, it's great. And I have to throw it out there. Just if anybody, I'm always worried about, people thinking the podcast is going away. I am talking to somebody, and hopefully our next episode will be skilling related. We're not just a completely PVM podcast now. I feel like I thought about that because we did the episode about TOA, and then I was talking to you about doing this episode about Slayer, and I was like, man, I don't know. I don't want to just keep going all PVM stuff, but I mean, there's no bones about it. It is, it's the most fun aspect of the game. I think we would both agree at least. And this is, I do love skilling. But yeah, it's, I have found on my iron that skilling feels like pulling teeth recently. All I want to do is PVM. And I mean, it doesn't help that we've been tobbing so much. Every time I get on, I'm like, all right, this is it. So my goal recently has been, I realized that the only thing holding me back from like 3 of the best elite diaries is my rune crafting level. So I was like, all right, I got to get 77 rune crafting so I can get Corinda elite and Lumbridge elite. Those are both fantastic rewards from the elite diaries. And I get on, I do Guardians of the Rift, and then it's just like, hey, you want Tob? Hey, you want Tob? I'm like, yeah, I want a Tob. That sounds way more fun.
Yeah, skilling is very fun. I think I'm at a certain point in my account that I just want to PVM all the time. And I think it comes with starting the higher level content of like, that's what I crave. But don't get me wrong, I absolutely love chilling, watching a movie, chopping some redwoods, watching Star Wars on a Thursday night and, hanging out and doing a skill and chill night. There's definitely a time and a place for that. But there's also definitely a time and a place for let's send a Tob.
Yeah. Shout out to the clan we've been doing. I know we mentioned it quite a bit when we first started. We do these skill and chill nights. We were playing board games. Recently we've been doing movie nights. So yeah, Thursday nights, hop on Discord. We've been watching Star Wars recently. We'll see what's next. I don't know, but yeah, it's I mean, as always, that's what's the beautiful part of this game. You get sweaty with your friends, but also you can just space out. And I mean, I was cleaning my house all day today, and just had some anglers going. Definitely took my efficiency of my house cleaning down quite a bit, but felt good to it always feels good to have something running in the background. But yeah, so that talk of skilling, talk of PVM, those two things had a beautiful child, and that's Slayer. So we can transition into kind of our main topic of the day, which is all about Slayer. So we're doing this series, like I said last time, where we just kind of pick a subject and just talk about it. Apparently after last episode, we talk about it for a really long time, but we'll see. I don't know if there's going to be any standard with that. We get people on here who are obsessed with this game as much as I am, and you just want to talk about it all the time. But yeah, so we're going to talk about Slayer today. Slayer is it's a very interesting skill. It feels different from any other skill in the game. Um, the thing that to me that's the funniest thing about Slayer is that it I call it the World of Warcraft simulator because like what World of Warcraft calls a quest is, go kill, 5 goblins or whatever. I've only ever played like an hour of World of Warcraft, so maybe I'm wrong. But when I did play it, most like MMOs, like classic MMOs, that's what they call quests is like, hey, go kill these things. And that is, that's the essence of Slayer. And one of the great things that RuneScape does is its actual quests are much, for the most part, much more exciting and interesting than that. But yeah, at its core, Slayer is just somebody says, hey, go kill this many of this thing. And that's pretty much all it is. But it because it is PVM and because people love PVM, as we're saying, it's generally regarded as the best skill in the game, or at least people's favorite skill in the game. So yeah, I guess my first question for you, Mitty, is a twofold question of, is Slayer your favorite skill and is Slayer the best skill?
Yes and yes. So I love Slayer. Even before I started doing raids and doing all of that stuff, Slayer was by far my favorite skill. And I'd say to this day, it probably is one of my favorite skills. It is just such a good overall skill, and you get to travel all throughout Gielinor, kill a bunch of different creatures. And of course, the best part as a main account is it is a GP printer. It is so good for money. Once you hit a certain Slayer level, it just makes you money. And every main account just loves making money. So it is definitely by far my favorite skill for sure.
Is everybody happy? We have a main account on the show again. It's not just the Iron Man only. I love that I'm constantly at war with this imaginary person that throws all these criticisms at the show, when in reality, nobody has ever said any of that to me, and everybody's been very kind. But anyways, yeah, just, I mean, oh man, it's hard to even start with what I love about Slayer. I do. So I'm really I've struggled on my iron. I also consider Slayer my favorite skill. And I think I would still say it's the best skill. But one thing I really noticed this time around, I just got 90 Slayer on my iron last week, and it really, like, I've gotten this feeling of, okay, we're getting to the good stuff. And I do wonder how much of Slayer is, like, how much of people's love for Slayer is a little bit of rose tinted glasses, because it really doesn't get good until, I mean, maybe 75, maybe, maybe that varies per person, but there's some rough early levels with Slayer. There's a lot of, Turoths and, water fiends, and some stuff that, like, you don't have the points to skip, and we'll get into some of the negatives of Slayer and stuff. But I do wonder, like, do you think that if it weren't for that, like, run of awesome stuff that comes in, like, the 90s, if Slayer would be as highly regarded as it is?
Yeah, I definitely agree. We'll save some of the bad stuff for later, but for sure, if Slayer was at level 98 going to 99, if it was the same as level 4 or level 20 or level 30, it would be probably the worst skill in the game, I would say. I know that, well, we can touch on that later, but I definitely agree with you that it would be a not so fun skill if it was all the same like it is in early game.
Yeah, I mean, it's as dull as some of the worst skills in the game when you're not getting to things that are collection logs and high GP. I think, gargoyles at level 75 is kind of your first taste of like, hey, we're getting and for both types of accounts, because you're getting some good GP, you're getting some alkables there. And then on an iron, you're getting, those noted steel bar drops. I love to see them. And I want to say 75 is, it's not where you first start to get superiors, but you start to get into those monsters that have, a better rate of superiors. You feel like you're going to probably get one per task at least, which is exciting too. And yeah, it picks up, it starts to feel more special. And you're getting to the point in your account where your gear is also being upgraded. So you're able to actually feel like you're really just, obliterating some of these monsters, and you've got some GP to buy cannonballs. You can buy the runes for, barrage tasks, and you're out of that early, like, you're having a melee dust devils kind of a thing. But all that said, it's like, yeah, that's all true about Slayer, but when you're comparing it to, wood cutting, rune crafting, it's like, it's still the best skill in my opinion.
I think every skill has that like very slow start, and then it gets better and better and better as the skill goes up and up and up.
Mm-hmm.
You think about like the major skills that people like struggle with training, like agility. Once you get to Sepulcher, people start to really enjoy agility. And then same thing with like rune crafting. Like the higher you get, the better Guardians of Rift becomes, as well as you unlock Zaya rune crafting, which is AFK. Mining. You get, the higher level you get, the more access to star mining you get, so you can like AFK for a lot longer. And so I think every skill has that slow start, but then the payoff at the end is much better than the start. So I think that just comes with RuneScape as a whole, as is just, if you can get through the beginning of it, the end is always great.
Yeah, well, and one of the funniest things about this game is, you look, from an outside perspective, you look at the list and it's like, oh, all the good stuff comes at level 90, and you're like, well, hey, that's still half of the skill you have left to train. So you'll get to enjoy those later things for plenty of time. But yeah, I do love Slayer. And I think, this isn't going to be like the TOA episode where it feels like we're kind of waiting to get to the negative stuff. I have almost entirely good things to say about Slayer. There's always criticisms to be had. So I think the first kind of part of Slayer, I want to, I kind of want to dissect all of the different aspects of Slayer, because I think it is so interesting in the way it works. And I think instead of kind of how we did TOA, where we did, everything that's good, everything that's bad kind of a thing, I kind of want to take these like separate categories, and we can do everything that's good and bad with them as we go. And the first one I, want to look at is, so Slayer Masters. So, there's a handful of different masters that we have for Slayer. And, I think, one negative thing I would say is that there's, I could count right now, but there's, I think, maybe 10 different masters, let's say, and only 2 of them have any kind of unique mechanic to them. And generally speaking, once you get to, let's say, 80 Slayer or something, you're going to go, and side note, I'm going to refer to every Slayer master throughout this episode as their original form. We won't get into any Slayers for anything. So at level 80, you're going to be going to Duradel for, 90, you're going to go to Duradel, and then every 10th task or every 50th task, you're going to go to Konar. And that's pretty much it. And, the Konar one is just going to be, you're going to be, you're going to be white knuckling it, because you're just hoping that you don't get just the worst task ever. And then you're going to do what I do, which you skip to the point where your bonus points aren't even relevant anymore. And you're like, well, yeah, I skipped 3 times. That cost me 90 points. And now I'm doing this so I can get 90 points. So this was pointless to begin with. But all that to say, you have Turiel, which is known for, its own unique thing, which we can get into in a little bit, but that has a unique mechanic to it. You have Konar, which has a unique mechanic, and then everybody else is just a kind of based on where you are in your account, combat level wise, what you're able to kill is what will cause you to go to those different masters. But even that, generally speaking, the strategy is get to Duradel as fast as possible because those are the best tasks. I think, there's maybe a little side avenue because I think that Neve gives the most Jad tasks is the only reason I remember that people go to Neve. But yeah, other than that, it is kind of a weird like landscape of, it's one of those things where if you looked at, I don't know, just the wiki and never played the game before, and it's like, oh, cool, there's a unique Slayer Master with their own unique flavor or whatever at all these different, checkpoints. But in actuality, it doesn't feel like that. It just feels like do the shitty ones until you get to Duradel, and then stick with Duradel until 99 and post 99.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think but I don't know exactly how much variety there should be in Slayer Masters. I mean, Duradel and Konar are like the main two that you'll always use. And then once you really start like skipping for tasks, you'll start using Turiel. So like those are like really the three main ones that you're going to use. If you want to do Wildy Slayer, I mean, there is a Wilderness Slayer Master. But I do agree. Like there really isn't a lot of variety. It's just use the best Slayer Master you have until you get to Duradel, basically. And so, yeah, I agree that is one of the gripes, if you can call it a gripe, that I would have, that it's just the meta is Duradel and then Konar on your 10th. And if you want to skip around and you don't want to use points, use Turiel, and that's basically it. So there's not really a whole lot of options when it comes to like these quote unquote Slayer Masters that are around the world and all that stuff. So I do agree with you on that.
Yeah, it would be, and I think part of what the reason for that is probably, as always with RuneScape, a lot of this stuff was created in a time where, they didn't think we were going to go as hard as we do, and it made a lot of sense that the Xanaris the Xanaris Slayer Master, that makes sense. You need 70 combat, and that road from 70 combat, and then Neve is at 85 combat, and that could take you like 2 years to get to that. But nowadays with how hard we go and how many other ways there are to get XP, you can do that in a week or so, and you're probably not even going to use the Xanaris Slayer Master. You're probably going to do, other. I mean, I'm pretty sure for my iron at least, I did like sand crabs until I was like 85 combat, and then started Slayer at Neve essentially, and bypassed all those other Slayer Masters. And there's a part of it that is kind of sad. It's like it's so cool. Like you were saying, it adds so much flavor to the game to have these Slayer Masters that are all over, the world. And, so I'm not trying to say any of these people's names, but, the Slayer Master in Mauritania is, you need 20 combat. I don't think I've ever used, there was something weird. There was a point in my Iron Man where I really needed watermelon seeds, and I don't remember what task I was trying to get from the Mauritania Slayer Master. But that's like the only time I've ever used him, and maybe I think there might be a diary that you need. But
yeah, there's a Mauritania step. Yeah,
okay.
I was gonna say that's the only time I've ever used that Slayer Master, and I immediately skipped it. I went to another Slayer Master and skipped it.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's like, and the level 40 Slayer Master I've always get a kick out of it because he's the guy you meet at Tutorial Island. That's like, I'm the greatest fighter in the world, and you never use him as a Slayer Master. You need him at 40 combat. He's like a low to mid-level Slayer Master that nobody cares about. So yeah, I don't know. I guess as in the category of like what could be fixed, or obviously this is the kind of stuff that's so ingrained in the game, it's not going to change. But if it did, I think it could be cool. Maybe if those people had higher weighting on things in their area, like especially the Mauritania one, if he was the best for like vampire tasks and gargoyles and abyssal demons, maybe. And maybe if they, instead of being at these tiers with their like kind of set list, maybe if they kind of leveled up with you on a scale, and so it was maybe more about going to the Slayer Master whose list has things you want in their region. That could be an interesting way of approaching it, as opposed to just all these ones that get forgotten in lieu of Duradel. But I don't know. Do you see any kind of fix for that, or even in the fantasy category of like, it's too late to change these things, but like if you could design it from the ground up, is there a different way you see that could be done?
I will say I really like your idea of being more region specific. I think that's a really like interesting perspective on a Slayer Master, and I think it really could give like good variety for using different masters. Because one of the things that I always thought was weird when I was like newer to the game, or like didn't really understand a lot of stuff, was, you're right, like you meet this guy in Tutorial Island and you never use him for Slayer. Like yeah. He's supposed to be like this grand warrior that you're supposed to like look up to, and like he's training you on how to like kill these rats, and like he's supposed to be this super cool person, but then he's like one of the worst Slayer Masters, and you never talk to him ever again.
To be fair, though, we all know that guy. I work with a lot of those guys. It's like, I'm the greatest electrician there ever was, and then everybody is complaining about them behind their back. Like, yeah, that guy's a blowhard.
Very true.
So maybe that's what that guy is.
So true. Yeah, honestly. But I do agree. I do wish that there was more incentive to use different Slayer Masters than to just use Duradel, Konar, and Turiel. I don't know. I think I'm so stuck on your region locked idea that I really like it. But the only downside I could see to it is you would basically only use like the Mauritania one and probably Konar for Hydras. Like, I'm trying to think of like any other like really good regions that already has a Slayer Master. I mean, you could add Slayer Masters in different regions so that you have some in the desert and you have some, I guess we already have a wilderness one. But, into the different like, categories that there are for leagues, like you add one Slayer Master to each of those regions, could definitely give like some really good variety. Like, DKs, you can have a Slayer Master that's like very easy to get a DK task and stuff like that. Because one of the gripes that I say gripe, it's not really a gripe. I love Slayer. But one of the things that it doesn't really fit my play style, but I know a lot of people like to grind one thing for a long time until they get a drop. It's a lot of like people's RuneScape mindset. It's not mine, but I know people that sit at one piece of content till they want, they get the drop that they want. And Slayer is one of those things that it basically makes it impossible for you to sit at a piece of content until you get what you want, so you can do the next piece of content. So, like the best example of that is like Hydra.
Oh, thank God. Okay.
Is Hydra. So, the Hydra Claw is really good on the Dragon Hunter lance, and you basically use that at like a major raid. Use it at Chambers. So it's a really good weapon that you use almost, in one of the like major raids that we have. One of the three raids that we have, and it's basically impossible to just sit there and grind out the Hydra Claw. That's like a 1 in 1,000 drop. It's impossible to sit there and grind it out until you get it, so you can go do Chambers if you want. You have to get a Hydra task, get like 150, kill the 150 at Hydra, and then go and get another task, and it's going to be greater demons, and then you go do greater demons, and then you get another task, and it's like you just kind of get thrown all over the place, which is a great part about Slayer, but it also is its downfall is that you can't get certain items that you want unless you're on task, and sometimes getting the task takes forever. If you don't tutorial skip, or if you don't have a bunch of points saved up, it's almost impossible to get a specific. I mean, it is impossible to get a specific task. It's just RNG at that point.
Yeah, it's going back to that earlier conversation about how the rose tinted glasses and how Slayer's great. You're kind of touching on another part that is so much better when you get to a higher level, is building up a base of points that allows you to skip the worst of the worst tasks, and of course a block list to block the heavy weighted bad tasks. But yeah, even when you have those things in place, you still, if you watch streamers when, when a Raxor came out, it's like, I just blew 2,000 points trying to get an Raxor task that I've been building up for the past 6 months, and I still didn't get the task. And yeah, that Slayer can really, really bite you in the ass with that. And sometimes, it's that weird RNG thing where sometimes it just comes in wave. It's like every other task is the one you're looking for, and sometimes you just cannot get it. There's someone in our clan who, I think they're 91 Slayer, and they said they've only had one Kraken task since you unlock that at 87, and I unlocked Kraken, and I have 1,000 KC there before 90 Slayer, and I ended up blocking Kraken because I was like, I'm so sick of these Kraken tasks. And so yeah, once again, this entire game's based on RNG, but yeah, I don't know. I do think a natural. Oh God, hold on, please don't die. Okay, so this is I'm only bringing this up because it's it's essential to the podcast. I'm doing a Necril task. I have 4 hit points. I'm on my last one. Come on. We can get this. Okay. We're good. Anyways, so I think a natural, part of if we got to have more region-based Slayer masters would be that I think we would have Slayer masters in other regions as well. Cause so my big Slayer thing right now, you're talking about Hydra, which is a task only boss, and that's what's preventing you from getting those drops. But the thing I've been really going for recently has been the Basilisk Jaw, which is a different category, similar but different, where you can kill Basilisk Knights all day long if you want, but the drop rate of the jaw goes from 1 in 5,000 down to 1 in 1,000, which is a very kind of controversial mechanic. I remember when they were going to change the drop rate of the Dragon Warhammer, there were a lot of people who said, well, instead of doing that, why don't we just, instead of just taking it down to 1 in 3,000, what if we took it down to 2,000 or 1,500, but made that only on task? And I was a big proponent of that until somebody was like, that's a horrible idea. That sounds like the worst thing ever, like trying to skip all day to get lizard task so you can get the item. And, just hearing someone else kind of put it like that, I was like, oh yeah, that is a bad idea. And, that's another part of that. But all that to say, yeah, if Slayer masters were more region based, it would be nice for, if there was a Fremnik guy who assigned a heavier weight of Dagonoths and maybe blue dragons for Vorkath and some of the stuff in the Fremnik Slayer dungeon, but also had the heaviest weighting of Basilisk, like that would be a cool kind of phase of my account that I would go to that Slayer master until I got that drop that I wanted. And then I would probably go to a different Slayer master for whatever the next thing I was looking for. And, that would just be really cool for kind of keeping things fresh, keeping things interesting, and having that feeling of like, yeah, I don't know. That feels very thematic and very cool of like, hey, this is my area, and these are the things I'm going to assign. And it could be balanced in such a way that like they just have a slightly heavier weighting. But you know how RuneScape is. If he has a 1% higher chance of assigning Basilisk, that's the guy I'm going to go to. But yeah, that would, I mean, it would just feel a lot. It would just feel a lot better and a lot fresher, and just have reasons to go to all the different Slayer Masters. But you know, it is what it is. It's not like a, you know, like you're saying, it's not like a huge problem. You know, especially once you get your Karamja elites and you can teleport straight to Duradel, you know, you're not thinking too much about it. You know, it's just Duradel becomes synonymous with Slayer and I guess the occasional Konar. But going, you know, one other thing, I guess, as far as possible ways to make it interesting, and I guess something that's also very interesting that they've done with Slayer Masters is these certain Slayer Masters that have unique drops when on task. So for Konar, you have Brimstone Keys, which, I mean, Brimstone Keys are interesting because they, you know, you can only get them all in a Konar task, and they open this Brimstone chest, which, you know, gives you some cool loot. But it also has, you know, the Dusk Mystic robes, which are super rare, but they're mystic robes. You know, they're only pretty much, people only care about them for the sake of collection logs. I would be very interested to see an account that gets to that point where they get Dusk Mystic and it's their best in slot. But you know, you have that mechanic with Konar where when you get a Konar task, you know that there's, you know, I think the wiki puts them at like 150 GP, 150K each. So, you know, you get that little extra GP. And then with Wilderness Slayer, you have the Laren's keys, which is the same kind of idea, except that they're tradable. But other than that, it's like just this little extra thing that even on the most like, you know, nothing task, you know, ice giants or whatever, it still adds a, you know, a little interesting twist to it that maybe I'll get this drop that makes this nothing task, you know, for you profitable, or for me, like maybe I can actually get some good resources out of this, or even this cool collection log that is only interesting if you're an Iron Man, really, because it's, you know, not useful to anybody for any reason. Although I will say for the Laren's keys, I mean, Dagon High is, you know, it's 1% mage damage now, so that could be best. That actually, much more than Mystic Robes, that one could be, I could see somebody getting that and that being their best in slot. I guess pretty much, I guess only Iron Man, but that actually could be something that would be a best in slot for you and more of an exciting thing. But yeah, I don't know. I think that could also be something that would make other Slayer Masters interesting, is if they had, each of them had unique drops similar to that. The obvious downside of that is then you've got, you know, Mudkip and all these YouTubers who've got to grind out 10,000 tasks from each master so they can get whatever the crazy unique thing is there. So maybe there'd have to be something to subvert that problem. But I don't know. I really like that key system, and I would love it if every Slayer Master had some kind of unique, you know, Slayer oriented like drop that you could only get on their tasks.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that too. Whenever Konar was released, I really liked the Brimstone keys, and the drops that they have are really useful. I know for Iron Man, you know, it drops a lot of resources. I know it drops like Dragon Arrow tips or Dragon Dart tips, and so again, super useful for Iron Man. It's definitely like it's a cool mechanic. Like I like the Wilderness as well. It gives you an incentive to go and use those two specific Slayer Masters that you may not normally want to use. You know, like Konar, for example. Konar sends you to a specific place with whatever monster that, you know, you're required to kill. So you don't really have a lot of options as to like where to go. You have to go to this one place and kill this one specific monster. But you're incentivized to use Konar because you have the off chance of getting a key I think it high elks for like 80K or something like that. And the normal loot is like 100 something K, like the average loot. So it's like an incentive to use Konar at a lower level because that money means so much more to you, or those resources mean so much more to you, as to just going with Duradel and just getting a task, going wherever, and there's nothing special associated with it. I think that itself adds a little bit of variety, depending on your account, obviously, if you want to go for those things or if those things are meaningful for you. It gives you the opportunity to do that. Like, I know that like niche account builds, because I think Dagon High you can wear at like a very low defense. So I know that like some niche builds, use Dagon High because it gives a magic damage bonus, and so you're able to use that on like a cool account, and it is probably very meaningful for a low mid-level iron. That would probably be huge to snag one of those pieces early on. Be very cool. And before I forget, one thing that I did also want to mention about like a region locked Slayer Master. One of the downsides that I was thinking of was one of the things that I like about Duradel is that most of the time, the task that you get, if you like set up your block list how you want it, you're really rarely getting a bad task that like it takes a long time to do or that you don't want to do. And one of the issues with being a more region heavy Slayer Master is that he would definitely have to offer some more bad tasks, because you couldn't just have, it all being Karamja and only have, certain monsters there that are heavily weighted. If you do it region locked, you'd have to have bad Slayer monsters in the pool. And as a person with 99 Slayer, the last thing I want to do is go kill Zygomites or go kill Ice Fiends or Water Fiends or whatever it is. I don't want to go kill Ice Giants in the wilderness. When I go to Slayer, what I want to do typically is either A, I want a boss, or B, I want to burst. And those are my two things that I want to do with 99 Slayer. I'm not really interested in AFK Slayer because I don't really care about the XP. I'm just here for the drops and the Slayer Helm, which is a very cool thing about Slayer is you get that Slayer Helm. But that's another topic I'm sure we'll hit on later on. But, all that to kind of say, a region lock has its pluses and downs, and I think adding variety to every Slayer Master is good. I just wish that you could switch up the meta without switching up the meta. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like make it feel better and cooler to use different Slayer Masters, but maybe gear it towards an individual Slayer level. But I think that also has its downfalls. Like, what if you're going for a collection log? Like, what if you want the Bronze Boot collection log and you want to go kill something on task that's super low Slayer? Like, there's always these niche scenarios that they have to keep in mind that it's been in existence for so long, it's just never going to change. So
yeah, and it's interesting because one of the things we praise about this game constantly is how sandboxy it is, and yeah, you never want to propose something that is, even if you never want to like propose even if a best in slot railroad. Essentially, it's like, even if it's like, let's make. It's kind of. That's a general like concept and problem in RuneScape that they always are having is, new content, like making it objectively the best, because then you're losing the sandbox, you're losing any kind of, flexibility with it. And you're just having it be like this checklist of go here for this, and you have to do this. And you lose any of that fun of like how much different, how many different options there are in this game. And yeah, so maybe, I guess another way it could be is, instead of it being like based on region, I know that, one fun thing about Slayer is there are a couple of different like kind of goals you can go for as far as, you can, and I'll definitely come back to this when we talk about, your block list and stuff, but you can design your Slayer kind of journey around getting points. You can design your Slayer, efficiency around getting the most XP. Like you can skip certain tasks for different reasons. You can, like, gargoyles is probably a good example. The spreadsheet that I kind of followed on my main for what to block and skip and stuff has you blocking gargoyles because it's a slow task. But in Kraken as well, Kraken was another one that it says to block because they're slow. But I kept that task because I Kraken's just one I enjoy because it's, I could do my laundry while it's going. But it I did gargoyles as well because they're very profitable and they're super chill. And so, but all that to say, like, I remember it, kind of, it was like Duradel is the best for XP. And I think like Steve is better for points because you can kind of get through them faster. Sorry, Neve. But, or I guess, it's like, Neve and Dakonar, and there's a little bit of a thing there, but like maybe that would be another way of keeping the Slayer Masters fresh if it was like, oh, well, this one is the best for points. This one's the best for XP. This one's the best for this. This one's the best for this, like kind of based more on like what your goals are from Slayer. But yeah, I don't know. I think the only thing that could really change would just be messing around with the weights a little bit. I don't think that, I think even like with a region thing, it would be more of like, they have the heaviest weight of their local monsters, but they can still assign anything. And that heaviest weight is just like a little bit heavier than the other ones, just for the sake of, once again, it's RuneScape. So if they have a 1% chance of being better, then that's the one we're going to go with. But I don't know. It's Slayer Masters are very interesting. And I think there's room for, as much as I hate Konar and any sensible person despises Konar because the potential for just the absolute worst of the worst tasks ever is there. As much as that is bad, I would love to see some kind of different takes on that, some kind of twist on things with how tasks are assigned or, different things. So one thing I'll ask, I think probably the biggest thing the community has like asked for, but hasn't happened for very obvious reasons, is some version of a boss only Slayer Master. And I don't know any way that could work. I think some people have said maybe like they give boss tasks, but they don't give any points or stuff like that. Do you have any kind of pitch or any kind of idea for like how that could ever work, or maybe some way of like buying boss tasks? I know one person was saying that like you could just buy a guaranteed boss task, or I don't know. Cause as you mentioned, once you get to 99, that's pretty much what you use Slayer for, is to get boss tasks. I don't know, but do you see any way of that being possible?
That's so funny because when you sent me kind of a list of like things to brainstorm about the podcast and kind of like what to talk about. This was like the first thing I thought of was under the any new content section. I immediately put potential for a Slayer for a boss only Slayer Master.
Yeah,
was the first thing that I had thought of and saw pitches about, and I was like, this would be perfect. I don't think there's any real way to balance it, sadly, but I'll kind of give my pitch, and then if you want to critique it or, want to keep talking about it, like, I think it's such a good idea that I think it should be at least discussed. Somewhere, hopefully the JMods I know that they've definitely thought about it. I hope that they continue with the idea of a boss only Slayer Master.
Well, and I can confirm that every single JMod listens to this podcast. So you're talking,
for sure.
You're talking directly to them right now. But yeah, no,
I hope so.
I'm excited. I'm going to rip this to shreds. Let's hear it.
So my particular take on it is so there's a couple different ideas that I'll again run by you and see what you think about it. I'll add each layer as I go.
Okay.
But one of the things that I thought about was everybody would use the Slayer Master. It would be something that you farm, and this is all you do once you hit 99. So my first tier is unlock the Slayer Master at 99 Slayer. That's a perk that you get at 99. I think it would add a lot of meaning to 99 Slayer, as well as it gives a use for like the cape, and the cape itself is also trash, but that's a whole nother topic that we can get on later. But it would be a 99 only 99 Slayer requirement to get to the Slayer Master. Then the next tier that I have is, instead of the and it could also be in tandem with getting no points from completing the task. But what if there was no skip mechanic? So you couldn't tutorial skip. You have to do whatever boss is assigned to you in whatever quantity it is. You have to do that boss. So
would it be,
if you're
sorry, would it be automatically your max of what's, right now I have hard diaries done, so it would be 55. Would it automatically be the max, or would they give you a specific number like a normal Slayer task?
I think it'd random generate a number between whatever your normal is and the max with whatever combat achievements you have.
Okay.
I think that's perfect. So it can range for, the higher level you get, the either more risky it is, or the more rewarding it is with your combat achievements. So, if you are really wanting to do like let's say like Bandos, like you want to get a Bandos task and you use this, well, too bad, you got 80 mole. Have fun doing mole. Like, I think, and there's no skipping. So it's a very high risk and high reward, especially if like you're not looking for a specific task. I think it's really great because so for my specific scenario, I would absolutely love that Slayer Master. I love kind of hopping around bosses, like doing 50 kills here, 50 kills there. And I think that would be super fun to do. And I would, there are obviously some bosses that I wouldn't want to do, but I'd have to do them. But it kind of mitigates the fact that you're not going to always get the most profitable bosses all the time, as well as you can't skip the non-profitable ones. So therefore, you're basically having to do all the crappy ones, as well as you have the chance of getting a good one. So I think that was like the best thing I could think of to kind of give some sort of a balance between the two, is that you're kind of SOL if you don't like the task, because you have to do it. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You can't skip it. You can't use points. You do it, and that's literally your Slayer task until you do it. So it's very high risk, high reward.
So it's funny because my initial response to that is like, I wouldn't want to use that Slayer Master because there's a lot of bosses I don't want to do. But because that's my reaction, I kind of think it might be perfect because, yeah, I mean, that is interesting what you're saying. I do wonder if maybe there could be like, you could skip for like 100 points or something, or 150 points, whatever, like a super high number. But yeah, that is interesting because that really, it's like that would only be useful for kind of like almost like the victory lap of Slayer. Like you completed Slayer and now you're just having fun with the game. And if you were in that particular mindset, that would be just really fun to just do bossing all day. And, one of the things that, the bosses that have overlap with boss tasks, like let's say Cerberus, where you can get Hellhounds and it's like 170, or you can get, 3 to 55 or whatever. It would be cool for that because, one of the things that's really annoying about Slayer, when you get to the level where you can kill these bosses, is when you get 170, Hellhounds. I don't know about most people, but for me, once I get to like 50 of them, I'm like, man, I either skip or go kill normal hellhounds for the rest of it. So having it only be the boss tasks, which are limited to 50. I can't think what the range is with combat achievements, but maybe like 50 to 65 or something like that.
I think so.
Yeah, so have it being capped there, and only those would be kind of cool. I think it's fair to say that if that were to be possible to come into the game, that might be the best version of it. But yeah, it's hard because and I guess the next thing we're gonna talk about is the Slayer helm itself. But I guess if anybody isn't like understanding, if you're asking the question of like, well, why is it such a big deal that you get a Slayer task for a boss you can just kill? The difference is the Slayer helm gives such a huge bonus to your stats that it means you can kill that boss. You can kill the boss so much more efficiently that now they're adding into combat achievements like you have to get the speed time while not on a Slayer task. So that's why it can't just be boss tasks all day long, because then people can just plow through these bosses with the bonus from the Slayer helm. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, I feel like that always comes up in the community, and there's a part of it that it feels like kind of one of those monkey's paw things where if Jagex were to ever give in and add that to the game in whatever version they did, people would very quickly realize why that wasn't a thing. And that's another, it's also kind of one of those things where it's like, you got to give them credit, because some of the things that are asked for constantly, like on Reddit, that never come into the game are because the JMods have enough game knowledge to know, like, you don't actually know what you want. It's like, if this actually did come into the game, you would hate it very quickly. And we've seen some examples of that. Like this is random, but I remember when they made the change at Phantom Muspa that you could grind your extra ancient icons down into more ancient essence. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever, because I had a bunch of them and I grinded them all down and went to sell them and realized that the market had crashed, and that never rebounded, because it's like those are less valuable now. So something that seemed like it was like the most obvious and great solution to a problem ended up just, kind of being a nothing update and kind of ruining the market for the profitability of that, the ancient essence there. But so yeah, I don't know. All that to say, I like that idea. I could see that being a thing. I would like to see some kind of very costly skip, because I can think of so many bosses that I don't want to kill. I think you said the only reason you weren't doing Slayer while we recorded is because you had a Kree task, and that is the last thing in the world I want to do. But yeah, so that, I think that's pretty much all I have currently that we should say about Slayer Masters. We can move on. I'm sure we'll come back to it, but it's not the all about series if I don't strictly hold to this template that is very amorphous and doesn't really work. But anyways,
I will say one more thing about the Slayer Master. I think there's a reason that it's not in the game.
Yeah.
So like you had kind of touched on, there is definitely a reason that there is no version, and they're not thinking of a version. The game's been out for so long that there's definitely a reason why there's no Slayer bosses. I think it would be as cool as it would be on like my account, and how much fun I would have with that boss or that Slayer Master. I know for a fact that if it came into the game, it would be awful. And it would be like, that would just be the new meta, and it would be so game breaking that you could just get whatever boss you like, go kill. Like, basically you're guaranteed to have a boss on Slayer task with a Slayer helm. And it's like, there's a reason why they haven't put it in the game. And again, as cool as it is, there's a reason.
Yeah.
So
well, that's the fun part about what we're doing here, is we get to just say these things and just, we just throw it out there. We don't really have to think about it. And There are people who that's their full-time job is to take that and really they got to think through every possible permutation of it, every way it can be abused, and that's the less fun part of making a game. Well, okay, so I said it, but obviously this is all very tied in with each other, but let's talk about the Slayer helm specifically. So I guess just to kind of give an overview, so the Slayer helm is basically it's a really cool concept. Is you're taking all of these pretty much all of the different Slayer items, which is something they've kind of moved away from, the idea that, oh, you need this specific item to kill this boss. I feel like there's a lot of the higher level monsters aren't like that. But you take all of these, different items that are needed for certain bosses, and you combine them all into this all-in-one helmet that, is basically your kind of one size fits all for Slayer. It protects you from, you have the face mask, you have like the goggles and stuff, the spiny helmet. But nobody cares about any of that because the one item that's combined with it is the black mask, which gives you a 16% bonus to your melee stats. And then when it's imbued is a 15% damage and accuracy for mage and range, which, going back to the people who aren't as, statistic minded in this game, ancestral robes are... hold on, I don't want to say it wrong because they just changed them. They're +4 now?
I believe it's +3.
+3, okay.
Let me look it up, though.
All right, we got a live fact checker. So ancestral robes are like 250 mil a piece, and they are 3% damage. So that said, a single item...
Yes, it is 3% per piece.
Okay.
Yeah, 3%.
So a 3% piece that's, over 200 mil versus a helmet that is 15%. I want to say that's higher than anything else in the game for either major range, is an insane bonus. Which, going back to what we were saying, is why Boss Slayer is so sought after, because you get an insane bonus to your damage. I mean, it's incredible. And so, the Slayer helm is this item that you're basically trolling yourself if you don't wear it for every single Slayer task. I can't think of a single Slayer task where you don't wear the Slayer helmet.
There is one. There is one Slayer task that you don't wear it.
Ooh.
If you're doing Vorkath
right.
a Blue Dragon task. That is the only task where it's actually better for you to wear a Salve Amulet, E, or EI, than it is to wear a Slayer helmet and a Torture or a Rancor, because the Slayer helmet doesn't stack with the Salve Amulet. So that is like the one task that you actually don't wear a Slayer helmet if you're doing Vorkath.
Yeah, so first off, you instantly fact checked me, because yes, that is the other item in the game that gives you that 15% damage, but only against undead. But also, shout out to the people who do Slayer Helm and Blood Fury at Vorkath. I still defend that, but I know it's not as good. But I did a lot of those. I liked that for longer trips, especially for the 10 kills combat achievement. But all that to say, the Slayer Helm is ubiquitous with the Slayer skill, and it's very cool. I mean, it makes tasks feel special, and it's also looks really cool. There's all kinds of different versions of it. You can get recolors and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think if there was let's say top 15 most iconic items in RuneScape, I think it could be on the list. I don't know. It'd be, from the 10 to 20 range, I think it'd be most iconic items in RuneScape. But yeah, the Slayer Helm is so essential to Slayer because of that. And I don't know if there's really much to say about it besides I have been wondering for a long time if it would be very interesting, skipping straight to the future content. I think it would be really cool if they shook up it would shake up the entire meta of so many things to add a new version of the Slayer helm that was in a different slot. Slayer boots, Slayer gloves that still gave that same bonus. Obviously didn't stack with the helmet. Um, but yeah, so this is something I've been kind of asking myself in the same way of the boss slayer. I will give you the impossible question. But yeah, this is so I've been asking myself what slot could have a Slayer Helm esque item that would shake up the meta, would make helmets more valuable again. That wouldn't be a complete replacement. It would have, like it would be 50%, it'd be 50-50 between the helmet and this item where they're useful for many different reasons. The best one I've come to would be your offhand. But yeah, I don't
That's
know.
exactly what I was thinking.
Okay.
Yeah, because offhand is really never used. I mean, obviously, you use a defender for like 99% of the content that you do. You'll use a Vernic or a Dragon or wherever your best defender is for melee. And then typically, you'll use like a mage book of some sort for an offhand. And then range, I don't really. Is there an offhand? I mean, I haven't used like a crossbow in forever.
There's pretty much
Um,
I mean, there's the Twisted Buckler, which
mhm,
I think is only ever, if we're speaking in terms of meta, I think it's only used at Nex. Um,
mhm.
and maybe Chambers. Don't quote me on that. But and then yeah, there's the Ward for
Oh,
Mage.
the wards, yeah. Mhm.
But that's another thing that would be interesting about the offhand is that is not compatible with any mega rare. Um, and it's not compatible with most range weapons. So I could see that being interesting because I could see there being, especially like mid to early late game, there could be a lot of situations where that would be a better item for that slot, but also there would be times, because like it would be interesting for the nerds to figure out and tell me on the wiki, like, oh, you want to use a helmet here because this, whatever helmet you're using with this attack style in combination with this offhand is better, but in this situation it'd be better to use the helmet and this offhand. I don't know. That's yeah, like I think offhand makes the most sense for a weapon of that type. Um, which
I do like the fact that you brought up that it's unusable with the three mega rares. I
mhm.
think that would, in this hypothetical world, it would really shake up the meta, which I think would be very interesting. Because for it to be unusable with mega rares, it makes it not great for in game because you always want your mega rares with you in like 99% of the time.
Mhm.
And also, range is so powerful in RuneScape. It's the best combat style in a lot of scenarios with having the blowpipe and the twisted bow. Um, so not being able to use it for either of those is very interesting. So you wouldn't be able to use it with mega rares, and you wouldn't be able to use it with the more powerful range items. I mean, you could obviously use it with crossbows and things like that, but in range, the blowpipe and your T-bow and your Bofa are your weapons that are being used most. So it would definitely shake up the meta for sure. That'd be very interesting.
And I think another thing that I think another thing that would make it could potentially be a reason why it would be a cool thing to have in the game is that idea that I was saying earlier about how it combines all these Slayer items. And I think this time around it would be cool to have it be created from the Slayer only boss drops that are not used, or not, not valuable. So something like a black tourmaline core, um, or extra Kraken tentacles, items like that that are would add a huge amount of value to them. Specifically, like stuff from Grotesque Guardians would be so nice to have. Some kind of big drop there. That adding that to the game would shoot the Black Tourmaline core up to 10 to 15 mil, and finally make that fight fun. But something from Sire, something from some of these late game boss monsters, and also from an Iron perspective, would just be such a cool thing to kind of aim for. But that's pretty much about as far as my thinking has gone with it. Like it would be cool. It would be cool for the helmet of every armor set to not be like 10% of the price of the rest. Like obviously the helmet's always going to be the least because it's going to have the fewest bonuses. And when you get into rating, the helmet is usually the first thing to not switch. You know, you're going to camp a face guard at TOA a lot of the time, stuff like that. Um, I guess the other thing, an offhand would allow it to be used with void, so you'd have to make it so those don't stack. Um, but I don't know. Yeah, it's just it would be something interesting to add into Slayer that would really shake things up and make helmets interesting. Um, add some value back to helmets. Maybe add some value to some of the less desired Slayer drops. But yeah, I don't know. That's pretty much all as far as I've gone with my thinking.
Like I said, I do think it is a very interesting thought process because I feel like offhand, like you really have like a meta with your offhand. Like you always basically use a defender of some sort if you're meleeing. Like you'll rarely use like anything tanky unless like it's like very niche scenarios. And in mage, like you'll basically always use the ward or like a Book of the Dead if you're summoning thralls and you want to save like an inventory space. But I think it would be very interesting to like, you know, just shake it up a little bit because I do agree with you. It sucks that all the helmets to all of these armor sets are like a quarter of the price or whatever it is because the Slayer helm exists, and that's just like it is what it is. You know, like the ancestral hat has the exact same like magic damage bonus as the ancestral top. So for DPS wise, it is relatively the same. It doesn't have the same accuracy or attack bonuses, but the magic damage bonus is the same. Mm-hmm. So it's still like incredible, but the hat is so much more like cheaper than the robes are, than the robe top is. And it's like, I wish that I do agree. I wish that we could just complete the set and use something that like, doesn't complete the set. Because like wearing full Ancestral or full Missouri or full Torva looks so cool. Like there's a reason that it's a set. And whenever you're on Slayer task, you always got to ruin it with your Slayer helm. And so it's never a complete look. So I'm with you. I think it'd be interesting. Obviously never going to happen, but it would be pretty dang cool to see.
Yeah, shout out to the Fashionscape side of it too. That you're totally right. Like Ancestral hat is one of my favorite like head slot items in the game. Like as far as fashion goes, it looks so cool. And I mean, yeah, any of the like, somebody in full Torva, full Ancestral, full Missouri, like, yeah, they were designed to be together. And you never see anybody wearing the head slots of any of those items unless they're in a specific DPS role for that in a raid, or if they're killing something off task, but that's so much less often than using it for Slayer. And you bring up something that another part of Slayer helm. I didn't even think about this when I was talking about notes, but I wish that they had designed the recolors of the Slayer helm around matching with existing sets in the game. For example, I have wanted for so long, I can see it in my head, and I wish I was good at drawing or any kind of art that I could put this out there. But a Kraken Slayer helm would be the coolest thing ever in my mind because I can just see it where it's like this Slayer helm, but it has these like tentacles on it. But the other part of it that I want is it would be white and gold and would match with the thing you wear for 90% of your Slayer task, which is Proselyte. And I wish that, because nothing matches with Proselyte, and I don't want to get too deep into like, I have to get the fit, for my Slayer task, but like, man, no Slayer helm looks good. Nothing in this game looks good with Proselyte, and it's like freaking white and gold armor. Like it's really cool, but you get that, you get a fire cape and some bright red dragon boots on, and you just, you look super janky. Man, you get that white and gold Kraken Slayer helm, that would be cool.
That's fair. I could see that. I could see I wish that there were, I mean, I know that there are a ton of recolors. Like that's the thing that's crazy is that there's so many recolors, but like it's kind of hard to find stuff that matches with armor that's already in the game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, and it's one of those like things that, with the combat achievements as well, you get like additional recolors with the combat achievements, with like the best one being the Zuck helm. But like the Zuck helm only looks good with Torva, and this is probably a really unpopular opinion, but I don't really like the look of the Zuck helm. I think the horns look kind of lame.
Yeah, no,
And I'm like,
I agree completely.
yeah. I'm like having, because to get a Zuck helm, you have to have Blood Torva. So like, I think that the Blood Torva helm looks incredible. I think that's one of the best helmets in the game. I love the eyes. I think it looks so BA. Like it is just an incredible piece of armor. But like, you're wearing a Zuck helm with it basically everywhere you go when you're on task with Blood Torva, and it just looks janky. Like, I don't know, the what's is supposed to be the most prestigious item in the entire game, being the Zuck helm. It just looks like meh in my opinion, but I don't know.
No.
Maybe I'm going too hard on that.
I agree completely. It actually kind of brings up this idea that, Jagex has been moving more towards this, like, to not affect the economy so much. They've been moving towards this like kind of aspirational content being tied in with cosmetics like Blood Torva. So I wonder, it would actually solve two problems at once if, instead of having to spend 1,000 points for each recolor, if it was more based on like, if you combine, like if you use a Slayer helm with a Blood Torva helm, that unlocks the recolor that matches Blood Torva, and you use it with a Misori helm, and it unlocks this like yellow version that is like perfectly matching with Misori. That could be a really cool way of doing it, and would also, I mean, obviously once you get to that high of a level, 1,000 Slayer points isn't gonna break the bank, but it would be nice to have those extra points, but while also having, I think they found out with Blood Torva, people will go to they will go to crazy lengths just for cool fashionscape, for flexing, because at the end of the day, that's like why people play this game. That's why people get the Inferno Cape 90% for flexing and 10% for the extra strength bonus, and it would be cool if that was more tied in with and it could be having the existing ones, but also the special Blood Torva one and stuff like that just matches perfectly with it. And oh man, that would be so cool.
Yeah, I think for like specifically like the very high end PVM, like the Blood Torva helm, like a twisted ancestral hat, the like a full Missouri mask, like the best in slot gear. I think on Slayer task, I think it should match. I mean, I think it like as like aesthetically, I think it would be like, it's weird that a max set doesn't match.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the helm doesn't match your max set when you're, but the helm is like what makes the set so great, because the Slayer helm is so good.
Yeah.
Having this quote unquote like max helmet on, the peak efficiency helmet on, makes you look kind of janky. I'm like, really? Like, it'd just be so cool if we could just, I agree, like maybe just use the Blood Torva helm on a Slayer helm to give it the ability, or like, show your Zuck helm to like a Slayer master, and they go, oh my gosh, I guess for 1,000 Slayer points, I could recolor your Slayer helm, or excuse me, not the Zuck helm, the Blood Torva helm, and say, oh well, I can, like give you the ability to unlock it with, Slayer points or whatever it is. But
and make that only available from the Xanaris Slayer Master, and then there we go. Now we have something interesting and unique from that Slayer Master.
And now you have to go there. So
we actually have a listener write-in question for this section. This is from someone named Dills. Wrote in a question. They said, RS3 introduced Slayer helms through a quest called Smoking Kills. Do you think Slayer helms should have been introduced the same way in OSRS instead of purely with Slayer points? Dills, if I'm saying that right, thank you for your question.
Do you want to hit on this first, or do you want me to hit on it first?
Well, I think my initial reaction to it is like, I'm going to get into this more. We're going to talk about the points next, but I think removing um, removing spending a mass amount of points on certain things would be huge. Like would be very beneficial for the skill. So I'm going to say yes to his question. But do you have a more interesting response?
So I don't know too much about RS3, and I don't know too much about the origin. Like if the quest was fun, if it was like a good unlock. I am personally a fan. Now, I'm not an iron, so don't hate me about this basilisk jaw. But I think it's a pretty cool idea that you can get a. I think at the time it was released, it was best in slot, right? Torva wasn't released before
Correct. Yeah.
the face card was, so the face card was best in slot, and you get it from doing a quest and then killing monsters afterwards. And like you had mentioned earlier, you get a boosted rate if you're on Slayer task. And that gives you the best in slot helm when you're not on Slayer task. So I think it would be kind of cool if the quest was like, a good quest. I wouldn't be opposed to you having the ability to get some sort of a scroll or a drop or whatever it is that allows you to combine everything. Like maybe you get like the last piece, like you get some Elmer's glue, and now you can finally put your Slayer helm together. But I think I don't hate that you have to buy it with points. I know that we'll get into the point conversation a little bit later. I don't hate it as it is now, but I do think it would be cool to get it from a quest rather than just going to a Slayer shop and buying it, and there's not really any backstory to it. Like, it doesn't really explain the helm and why it's so great. It's just like, oh, well, you can buy it with this many Slayer points, and now that you bought it, okay, you just use all the items together, and boom, you have a Slayer helm. Like,
Well,
why couldn't you have done that earlier?
what's interesting is that does exist. I mean, you have to, because I think obviously the black mask is the Slayer helm in a sense. Like that's the only thing that makes the Slayer helm interesting, and that comes from a monster that is ostensibly unlocked from Cabin Fever.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
So-
I didn't even think about
So
that.
in a sense, what
That's
you're
fair.
saying exists, but also what you're saying, that is a nothing quest that unlocks this very low level monster. I think what is it, 58 Slayer to do them. So yeah, it's almost like it's definitely 100% one of those things that if they went back and made the Slayer helmet now, first off, it would be like 5%, but
Oh yeah.
but it would probably be something that was a Grandmaster quest that was, unlocked this, multi-phase, demi boss that was, a much bigger deal. And what they made it's like this huge thing when you get this drop, as opposed to something that you kind of rush early and get as fast as possible. So yeah, it's kind of, I didn't even realize that until you were saying it, but it's like, that does exist. It just isn't as big of a deal as, and obviously you still need the points to buy the unlock, but it's there. It's just a much less, less prestigious of a process than it is. I'm assuming in RS3.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I just totally forgot about like the black mask part of it, which obviously I know that that's like the reason that you use the Slayer helm, but I forgot that there's even a quest to get to the black mask.
Mm-hmm.
It's been so long since I've done like, early game Slayer. But yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point. Like I can kind of understand. I don't remember the quest at all. Do they even mention the black mask?
I don't think it has, because I think the quest is to unlock mostly harmless. And so it's just like you unlock this island and this just happens to be on the island. If I remember correctly, I don't think it has anything to do with the cave horrors.
Gotcha.
But
yeah, I think if they had it, kind of like how the Basilisk Knights, it's tied in with the quest itself. I think that'd be cool for it to be tied in. But I mean, obviously it is what it is. It's not going to change. But I think I do agree with you. Like if they were to go back, I think that they would add a lot more hype to the Slayer helm than, kind of a tiny little quest that unlocks a creature that drops this thing.
And I guess for context, I guess I haven't really mentioned that, but the reason I'm so triggered by any mention of the Basilisk Knights is I had this assumption that when I created an Iron Man, my RNG would be inverse, and everything I was dry on, I'd be spooned on, and vice versa. But I'm dry on my Basilisk Jaw, just like I was on my main. I hit 1,500 kills yesterday, which that's 1.5 times dry, not a big deal. But going back to what we were saying earlier, it's a task only thing. And so I'm having to just do Slayer upon the Slayer and that's kind of the item I'm going for right now, more than anything else in Slayer. And so it's just like every task is like, please be Basilisk. Nope. But I obviously tongue in cheek, but that's why the Basilisk Jaw is a sensitive subject right now. But yeah, so Dills, thank you for writing in. If anybody else, if you have prior knowledge of what the episode is going to be and are able to write in before we record it, feel free to do so. But yeah, that's I think that's everything about Slayer helmets. And I guess these categories all bleed into each other. I guess I keep saying that, but as far as the point system goes, so every time you complete a Slayer task, you get a certain number of points, and those points are used for three major categories. So they are used to skip/block tasks. They're used to buy unlocks, and they're used to buy items. I don't think anybody ever buys items. Maybe, I guess the only item that people ever buy with Slayer points would be the rune pouch. But don't do that. Do LMS. It sucks, but it's faster. I didn't believe it either, but take my word for it. As far as the other two things go, so this is the only reason I want to talk about Slayer points is this is one of my biggest problems with Slayer, and I would love to hear somebody else talk about it. But yeah, so essentially Slayer points, you're always caught in this back and forth of wanting to unlock things. I mean, and this is definitely a problem in like the level 70 Slayer range, but it does extend later on. But essentially, yeah, you get points for doing Slayer tasks, and you're always caught in this cycle of, do I use my tasks to skip tasks, or do I use my points to skip tasks, or do I use my points to buy these things I've been wanting? And when you have, let's say you're wanting to unlock like a boss, which I'm gonna say is 400 points. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but if you have 400 points even, you're like, well, if I unlock this, I am not able to skip anything for a while. And if I get Iron Dragons next, then that's going to be a problem. And yeah, I guess that's my frustration, is always like, I wish those things were separated. And I have a few different ideas of how that could be, but what would you say to that, just generally speaking?
Yeah, so generally speaking, back when I was a low level Slayer, now I will say, like I said, it's been a long time. It's been years since I was like mid 70 Slayer. But when I first started my account, and this is just kind of like my personality type, I hoarded my points. I don't think I skipped a single task to like, I want to say like 60 something Slayer. Like no joke. I did every single crappy task imaginable, and I would only skip it if like I absolutely could not do the boss itself. Like or not the boss, the creature itself. Like even if it was crappy, if it was like 75 steel dragons, I'm doing 75 steel dragons. Like I want my points. So when I got to like the unlocking phase where it like made sense to unlock everything, I think I had like 5,000 Slayer points or something, just stupid high. Like you don't need that many points for anything. And my friends were like, "Oh, dude, you should have already unlocked the like a boss, and you should have unlocked the superiors and like all this stuff." And I'm like, "Oh, cool. Cha-ching, 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 spend away, spend away." And so I never really had that like point where I was like, oh, I have 410 points. I definitely can't skip my next task, buy it, and then get a crappy task. I've never had that before, but I've done my fair share of crappy tasks that I don't know why, my younger self did not skip those tasks. um, but I mean, I'm actually a fan of the Slayer point method because and only because tutorial skipping exists. If tutorial skipping didn't exist, I think Slayer points would be awful and the whole system really would suck because you're basically, once you hit a point, you're stuck with that task, kind of like, the bossing task, like boss only Slayer that I had brought up. Like, it would be major high risk, high reward. If you were just out of Slayer points, and you just bought something, if there wasn't Turiel. So, thank God for Turiel. That's all I got to say there.
Wow, that is so that this is why, this is why it's great to have different people on the podcast. This is so interesting because it just your response there just showed how different we approach Slayer because because two things there. You said you had 5,000 Slayer points. I would have, without thinking, I would have bought 5 Slayer helm recolors and then just been like, oh no, I'm out of points. I did do that on my main. Like every time I hit 1,000, I bought a new Slayer helm recolor. And then it was just like, all right, here we go. We're rebuilding again. But then the other thing of it is I've never broken a task streak with Turiel. I've always
I have not either. I will put a caveat. I have never done Turiel skipping. I know about it, and I probably will do it once I hit 1,000 tasks, but I've never actually done it before.
So you're referring more to Turiel boosting then?
So, no. I will say I am glad that Turiel skipping exists, and I think it's a necessity in the game since skipping is point locked. I think there has to be a way for you to not do a crappy 180 blue dragon task. Mm-hmm. Now, at the cost of resetting your streak, that's a big thing for RuneScape players who like to see number go up. Mm-hmm. It's a big thing resetting a big number. So I think that Turiel skipping is definitely needed and is like a very important part of the game. I've just never done it, but I definitely know that I will in the near-ish future.
Yeah. Okay. So you're just saying it's a necessary part of the Slayer point system because it gives you that like final, desperate last resort if you really, really, really don't want to do the task. That makes sense.
Yeah. And I know like Turiel skipping is technically like faster for getting a specific task that you want than Turiel boosting is. So like if you're like hunting a very specific task, like I know like speedrunners who do like Inferno, they will Turiel skip until they get an Inferno task. So they'll do tons and tons and tons of Turiel resets until they get their desired Inferno task because it's quicker than accumulating all the points to just click skip, and you're good to go. Yeah. So yeah.
No, okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it's it is a yeah. I mean, I'm kind of going through it, and it's Turiel is such an interesting part of the Slayer meta because I try to use him as little as possible. I do boost every once. I feel like what I've been doing recently is once I get to like 7 of a task streak, I do like a couple of Turiel just to get to that 10th a little faster. I never had the patience for like fully committing to 9 Turiel, 1 Konar, 9 Turiel, 1 Konar. I just like it here and there when I'm like, yeah, I'm very liberal with my points, and so I need to boost them up here. But the skipping part of it, yeah, I see the logic of doing it at 1,000 tasks. But man, I just cannot see myself, getting 1,000 tasks and just, giving it all up. It just, yeah, like you said, that number go up it's just too satisfying.
It's so funny because like I know once I hit the 1,000 threshold, I'm instantly switching over. Like I just know that that's going to be the case. After 1,000, I'm like, I don't really care at this point.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. I mean, that's once again why it's just so cool having different people on here to talk, is just different perspectives on things. Um, well, yeah, so that, yeah, I don't know. I, maybe it's just maybe what we're doing here is we're just highlighting my lack of self control with Slayer points. 'Cause maybe this is a problem that is uniquely mine. I don't know.
No, I think you and I are just the exact opposites. Like I am a hoarder of my points, and you are like a spender of points. Because like I think right now, I think I have like 1,000, maybe 200 Slayer points or something like that. Like I just have a bank for like a super rainy day if I ever need it.
Yeah.
And like I feel bad, but like even during bingos, I like hesitate to use my points. I'm like, do I really need a task to
Oh
do
man.
whatever we're doing?
Oh,
And I'm like, look, I know that we got all of our armadillo pieces, and I have, I have I can't even remember what they're called now.
aviancies.
Aviancies. Thank you. I have an aviancies task, and I'm like, but do I really need to skip to go do a Raxor? I know I have to, but like, do I have to? Can someone else just do it?
Yeah.
Because I don't know why I hate spending my points, but obviously I'll do it for the greater of the team when it comes down to it. But
Yeah,
I just hate it. I don't know
we're
why.
very different. I have never ended a bingo with a single Slayer point, and it's
Oh my
and
gosh.
let's be clear, it's never worked out for me. I I end with 0 points, and yeah, I've never. I don't think I've ever gotten a Slayer related drop in bingo, but that's just once again that's my own problem. um, so one thing I do want to talk about, and this is kind of in the realm of advice to newer players. As far as block lists go, I think a pitfall that I see so much in the community is the idea of the standardized block list. But I think personally that a block list is a very personal thing. Um, I think there's a lot of different reasons to have a lot of different things blocked. But at the end of the day, I think a block list exists for I think you can max out at 7 different tasks that you just don't want to do. And it's okay to block something that isn't efficient because you just don't want to do it. Um, and so I think that's kind of the PSA of that I want to put out there, because I remember, I kind of brought up already, gargoyles and kraken are both things that are heavy enough weighted that you're supposed, like, efficiency wise, both for points and for XP, you're like strongly advised to block both of those. Um, and it's another thing that I feel like I'm always telling people in this game, and specifically with block lists, they'll say like, I'm level 70 Slayer. What should my block list be? And I always say like, do everything at least once, see if you like it, and then decide if you're going to block it or not. Because like I said, Kraken, I just, something about it. It's just so chill and so easy, and you get some pretty good drops from it. Like I do not just look at a list that says block this before you've ever tried it before, because you never know what you're going to like.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that as well. Like the block list, I mean, so you know, I have an Infernal Cape, but I am not a high efficiency gamer. Like, I am definitely on the more relaxed side of RuneScape, and I basically play the game to have fun. Um, and I'm 100% with you. Like, even if something is not technically like weighted higher than something that I absolutely hate, I'm blocking that thing I absolutely hate. I don't care. Like, if I hate it, I never want to even get assigned it. I know I can skip it real easily, but I don't even want to see it being assigned to me. Like, I hate it that much.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely with you on that.
Yeah, it kind of plays into this larger thing. Like if I have anything I can add to the kind of conversation in this game by being on this podcast, I feel like I bring it up in a different variation every episode, is just play the game you want to play. Like
Yeah.
I do not, we'll get into some blasphemous territory here. For one, I do not do, I do not do JAD tasks. I don't enjoy them. I've never liked doing that. You know, even if it does take 30 minutes with a Slayer helm, I always skip those. And I finally wised up and was like, well, if I'm going to skip it every time, let me just turn off the unlock. But yeah, I've never liked doing it. I did 5 of them on my main, and I got Spoon the Pet, and I was like, thank God that's over with. But yeah, JAD tasks are huge for XP, and obviously if you can do Zuck tasks as well, they're huge for XP, and it's a great thing, and a lot of people love doing it. And you know, there's the pet hunting side of it as well. But pause, wait for it. Oh, sorry. That was me getting a new Slayer task. Sorry, I'm only commenting on what I'm doing in game because it's relevant to the conversation. I got Suklas. So yeah, and that extends to a lot of things. When I hit 99 magic and 99 Slayer on my main, I stopped doing Necreal tasks, which is like the pinnacle of like Slayer tasks. That's what people dream of getting because of it's so good for Slayer XP, it's so good for Magic XP, it's great superior chance, you know, blah blah blah. But I just didn't want to do it. I didn't feel I don't, you know, I don't love barraging tasks. I don't hate them, especially with goading potions now. But you know, it's everybody's likes and dislikes are going to be different for what kind of tasks they do. And there's probably someone out there who Iron Dragons are their favorite task. I don't know why, but you know, somebody probably likes it, and that's okay. Like, just play the game you want to play. And I step down from my soapbox.
No, I very much agree with that as well. Like, I know I keep saying that. Literally, like every point you make, Trey, I'm like, dude, I totally agree with that.
Well, that's the only reason I let you come on the podcast.
But no, seriously, like I really do like wholeheartedly agree with that. Like, this game is only as fun as you allow it to be, and it can also be as crappy as you allow it to be. So like, customize, like that's the whole point of a sandbox. Is like you make it as fun as you want it. And Slayer is like the heart of making something as fun as you want it. I like I think that like you hit it right on the money. Like, and you do like I agree. Like, I agree that it's definitely just customize the game, make it fun, make it enjoyable. If you really like Iron Dragon tasks, because back in the day in 2004, you got a Visage back in the day, and you just love Iron Dragons, you would keep doing them. Like, it doesn't matter, you know, as long as you're having fun. Like, money is great. Like, as a main account, like making GP is great, and that's like a lot of people's focus. But you'll make GP, you know, later on. Like, you'll always make GP. Every piece of content you do, like when it comes to late game, you'll make GP. So just have fun with whatever task you do. Like, just enjoy it. You don't have to be peak efficiency, peak sweat. Just have fun with it.
Yeah, and all that being said, the cool thing about your block list, and the other reason why it's not a one size fits all, is you can, in addition to customizing it to what you enjoy, you can also customize it to what your goals are. You can like you can set up your block list for the best XP. You can set up your block list for the, you know, I know one of our you know, friends in the clan is really going for an imbued heart right now. And you know, so their block list is set up around, you know, what's the best superior rate of things. Or, you know, there's people who are, you know, like if somebody was going for the Dust Mystic, like their block list would be very different because they're on Konar, and her weighting is very different than Duradel. Or someone like you is going to have their block list set up for, you know, what things are best for bossing, and what you know, certain normal tasks that have boss variants, kind of a thing. But yeah, so there, I think it's definitely worth looking into. And also early on, you know, once again, to the people out there who are kind of earlier on in the journey, 100 points is a lot of points, but don't be scared of blocking something that you intend fully to unblock later. Probably the best example of that is Hellhounds. Like, it's okay to block Hellhounds at level 70 Slayer, fully intending to unblock it at level 91. Like, you will get those points back. I mean, this is, I shouldn't admit this, but I just recently blocked black demons and greater demons on my iron. And I shouldn't do that because greater demons, I have enough synapses, but I don't have burning claws, and I also don't have a Zamorak spear. So I should be doing greater demons task either at tormented demons or at krill, but I don't want to. And that's not the goals I'm going for right now. And so I blocked that, fully intending to unblock it at a later point in my account. And I blocked black demons. I only have 2 Zenites, but I don't have the crafting level to make the other 2 Zenite jewelry items, and I don't really want to do demonic gorillas right now. I can, both of those examples I can go back to later when I have, better items and stuff. But yeah, it's not like I can't block these because I'm gonna get these items later on, and I have to force myself to do these tasks that I don't enjoy and all this kind of stuff. You're gonna get, if you, the best thing about RuneScape is that it's, if you just keep playing the game, everything is going to progress and you're going to get those points back. You're going to hit, you're going to hit a 100-point task streak and get a ton of points that are going to pay for all these different things you're wanting to get. You're going to hit your 500 and your 1000, and you're going to just be swimming in points. So don't be scared of blocking something, even if you might need it later.
It's funny. I wish that you would have said that, like, maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Like,
I didn't know that 5 years ago. No, it took me until like 95 Slayer to figure that out.
Yeah. Like, I remember being in those days, like, being so like, I know that I'm gonna want to do Cerberus, but yeah, like, I'm level 70 Slayer. Okay, I won't block it because I can just RCB them in a safe spot in, the stronghold or wherever it is. Like, no, just don't be like Mitty. Don't be frugal with your points. Like, spend them wisely. Make Slayer enjoyable for you, because it should be an enjoyable skill. It's one of the PVM focused skills that a lot of people really enjoy. So yeah, I definitely wholeheartedly agree. Just make it your own, make it fun, and don't be afraid to use points as you need to.
It's funny. This isn't related to Slayer necessarily, but it's just what you said makes me laugh. I'm just thinking to myself, I think the reason that I'm so liberal with my Slayer points, and when I was a main I was really bad with my GP. Like, I would buy stuff and sell it back at a huge loss and all this kind of stuff. And honestly, at the end of the day, I think what that is so much of being an adult is that I have to worry so much about money. And I think part of the escapism of RuneScape is that I just spend my money in my Slayer points and stuff like that, and I just don't think about it. It's like it's a safe place to just be irresponsible, and it feels,
that's so funny.
It feels good to not think about that. And that maybe that's why like flipping has never appealed to me. Like, I've always hated like GE flipping, because it's just like it's like I'm playing. It's like I might as well just do the real stock market if I really want to like pay this much attention to percentages and stuff.
That's so funny. My profession is, so I'm an accountant, and so I'm very, like, I think that also plays into why I'm so stingy. It's on my real life side, like, I'm so, I wouldn't say I'm stingy, but like, I control a budget for the company that I work for, and so I'm having to like always think about like the best possible routes for things and like where to spend things appropriately, and like, do you take the risk here or do you take the risk there? And so I've like always had that mindset of like, okay, I got to be super strategic with how I do stuff. And I will say the later I've gotten into the game, the more like liberal I am with a lot of that stuff. I'm like, whatever. I can just, I can buy this if I want to, or like I can, get prim boots, even though they're like a +1 strength bonus over D boots. Like, it's like more based on what I want to do rather than like actual like peak efficiency. But that's funny that you bring that up.
Well, yeah, and I think if it was going to be any kind of actual game advice, it is a very true thing. Much more so for a main, but also it is true for an iron as well. You do have to spend money to make money in this game.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, dropping, like, I mean, that I talk all the time about my Bofa rebuild, and that I dumped my entire bank into some items, but those items let me get so much more money than I had before. And yeah, it's just this is all made up. Your GP is yellow pixels, and yeah, spend it while you have it, and do whatever's fun in the game. And if you run out of money, do some rune crafting or something. I don't know. Do some raiding, get some drops. I don't. However, people make money these days. I'm an Iron Man, so I don't think about money anymore. I'm kidding. I'm
You
kidding.
didn't know Trey's an iron,
Yeah,
so he doesn't have to worry about GP anymore.
yes, of course.
He'll just drop it. He'll just drop it.
I've transcended money. Anyways, yeah. So I guess you completely shut me down on the Slayer point rework, and you convinced me that I'm in the wrong, and that's okay. I need to just be a little. I need a in-game point accountant.
Yeah, you're like little point advisor, like once every couple of weeks, you go talk to him for about 5 minutes and he'll tell you what to do with your points.
And the answer is always just do the task. But sometimes I don't want to. So speaking of tasks, kind of moving on to the next section. So I wanted to get a little bit into specific tasks. Just kind of, best, worst, like favorites, least favorites, of the actual tasks that you get. Slayer is such a cool thing. Assigning you all these different monsters. I do think they've done there is such a cool variance. I, being such a huge fantasy fan, the way that they've, used Slayer to incorporate all these different, kind of classic fantasy monsters, and it is funny because it's RuneScape. You get something classic, like a Kraken, and you just stand there and shoot it. And you get something, such an iconic fantasy creature like a basilisk, and you just stand there and shoot it. But all that to say, there's such a wide variance and so many cool creatures in, that are essentially Slayer only. So yeah, I'm just kind of curious about what are some of your favorite monsters that you get. What are some of your favorite tasks and why?
So let's see. This is a really good question. Man, if I could have just prepped this a little bit, man, I would have just gone on and on and on. I would have kept yapping. Man, okay, so favorite tasks for sure. Any sort of bossing task. I typically don't really care what boss it is, because if it's a boss I hate, 3. If it's a boss I love, whatever my maximum is, I'm gonna do it.
So you do every boss task?
Yes, I'll do every single boss task without question. So if it's giant mole, barrows, anything out in the wildy, like I will 100% do a bossing task. I'll never waste it. I'll always either do 3 or the maximum. There's no in between.
I'm sorry, you. That's the second time you've brought up giant mole like it's a bad boss. Giant mole is one of the best. How dare you?
Let me say this as a main that's looking for some GP. And I will say I do love the pet. So maybe one of these days it'll be a 55 task for me when I start pet hunting.
Are you a normal or naked mole rat type of person?
Ooh, that's a great question. I would say normal.
Okay, all right. Just a normal pancake.
Yeah.
No, dude,
it's so cute.
Mole is so underrated for profit. That was the first step in my Bofa rebuild, and it's the perfect first step there because it's the lowest of the requirements, and also just you just build up. So I mean, to be fair, I did I think 3,100 kills to get the pet. And so obviously those numbers are a bit inflated, but man, I love me some mole. You get the cannon in just the right spot where it double hits on the spawn and you hit it with the Bofa. You can kill it before it digs. Oh, it's a good time. I love mole.
I will say it is a great mid game to early, it's a very chill boss. And I do agree. I don't think I have much KC. Let me see what my KC is on that giant mole. So Yeah, don't hate me. I've done 48 giant mole.
Oh wow.
So not very much,
You hate the
but
giant mole.
it's not that I hate it. It just you need the. I remember back in the day, like having the you have to have the Fally Shield to make it viable.
Hmm.
And so I remember I didn't have the Fally Shield, and everybody's like, "Oh, giant mole is such good money for like mid game," and I'm like, "Oh, great!" And I tried it, and I was like, "Yeah, finding this mole is freaking impossible, and it's dark in here, and I hate it." And so I've just never gone back. But the pet is so good; it's so cute. I love the little pet.
No Fally Shield, no
So
light source. Just why do people like this, boss?
seriously, but that was also back when base 50 stats, not knowing anything, running around. So you know, sorry to all the mold lovers out there, but
Well,
it's not my favorite yet.
I'm a giant hypocrite. I've not killed the mole yet on my iron, so yeah, I know. I'm talking out of my ass right now. But okay, so sorry. Back to boss slayer. You do every task. I have been. Oh man. So something that I definitely learned from doing slayer on my main that I took into my iron was like, on the everybody says like on your slayer unlocks. Number one obviously is oh my gosh, I can't think of what it's called now, but
Superiors.
yeah, superiors.
Yeah.
Oh, bigger and badder, I think is it's called.
Yeah.
And then number two, like the second you get it is like a boss. And I realized from doing it on my main that like I skip like 75% of these because like I couldn't do it. Like for whatever reason, I didn't have the gear or the levels or stuff. But early on, like I couldn't do any of these boss tasks. And so I didn't
Hmm.
unlock like a boss until I was like 85 Slayer or something like that because I didn't want to it just felt like it was um like it was always a skip and it was just an unnecessary drain of my points. Um and
Yeah, I definitely don't think you need to unlock it as early as like most guides say, because yeah, you're not gonna like really be doing like high level bosses at like, and it's not really like fun when you're like a low level, like getting assigned like bandos, like you're gonna get slapped around and it's not gonna be that fun for you. And so for me, like I don't think I unlocked like a boss for a while because
yeah.
like I knew that I wouldn't be doing the bosses and I wouldn't be having fun. I'd just be skipping them. So I like held off on it for a long time. But that's also frugal Mitty over here, like not wanting to spend any points. So justifying it in my brain, like, oh, I'm just gonna skip it anyways.
Well, and it's funny because yeah, and like another like aspect of how we're different is like I do not like the idea of having to get all geared up and go to kill the boss 3 times, and so I would rather skip than do 3 of them, depending on the boss, obviously. But I have been really guilty of that on my main. I got to the point where or sorry, on my iron, I've been really guilty of that because I finally unlocked like a boss. I was like, I think I'm at the point in my account where I could kill like half of the boss tasks, and hopefully it's like a Zora one or something. Um, but I've been skipping all of them. I'm just like, I don't know. I just want to chill out. I don't feel like seeing if my iron can kill Bandos yet or whatever.
Mhm.
So yeah, I say that I learned my lesson, but I still ended up making the same mistake. But yeah, so I definitely don't use my like a boss as much as you do. But that was a whole tangent from you talking about liking bossing. I'm sorry. Going back to the
No,
tasks
that's
that you
okay.
like.
Yeah, I would say another. So I enjoy burst tasks. It's nice and chill, and I can kind of just like catch up on YouTube videos or like do like a skill and chill or whatever. Like I love just having a burst task available,
Have you
and I think it also. Oh, go ahead.
sorry, have you done it with the goading potion?
I have not. So I haven't gotten a task, like a burst task, since the goading potions came out. But I haven't been doing Slayer super heavily. Been mainly doing like Coliseum, and I think when the goading potions came out, I was doing Inferno.
Mhm.
So I just haven't really had an opportunity to do it yet. But I've heard they're great,
Yeah,
and I'm very excited.
it's kind of a different vibe when you do a bursting task with a goading potion. It's definitely better. Um, but it's a lot more about kind of like taking them as they come. Um, because you don't do the thing like, when you don't have a goading potion, you take some darts or something, you tag each of them, and then you can do, if you want to be, more efficient, you can do the little dance between two tiles to get them all to stack up on
Mm-hmm.
each other and then just obliterate them. Um, I don't do that. Maybe that's more of a me thing, but with a goading potion, they die and then they spawn and then they automatically come towards you. So I usually just kind of AFK it and just kind of kill, the 3x3 next to me as they come in. So it is a little different. I feel like if it's probably, I haven't actually seen anybody talking about it, but I'm assuming from a hyper efficiency standpoint, it's probably still more efficient to still tag each one of them. But I don't know that for sure. I would, I would assume so though.
Yeah, I'd imagine it's better. Plus, with the goading potion, it'd be like whenever they all spawn in individually, you still have to run back and forth to get them all to stack up. So, like, it'd be like more click intensive and not as AFK if you were being like hyper efficient with the goading potion, from what I would like imagine. Not 100% on that, but
Okay, here, hold on a
um,
second. We're going to have a little impromptu segment here. So this is the pinnacle of this episode because I am at my 10th Konar task, or I'm at my 10th task. I'm standing in front of Konar right now. So, in light of what we've been talking about, Mitty, you are frugal. I am not with my Slayer points. So, I'm going to get a task from Konar, and you're going to tell me if I'm going to skip it or not.
oh god.
All right, let's see what we got here. Okay. Be kind. Please be gentle. 147 blue dragons in the Isle of Souls.
Oh, that is a skip and a half.
Okay, thank goodness.
Oh,
All right, let's try it. Let's spin the wheel again.
reroll.
Oh, okay. I'll be interested to see what your response is here. 33 bronze dragons in the catacombs of Corinne.
How many points do you have?
How many points do I have? Let's see here. I have 68 points.
Oh, that's still a skip for me.
All right.
Oh,
So we're getting to the point. So this is 60 points now. So we're getting to the point where the 90-point bonus from Konar isn't even like good anymore. So
not even worth it.
I have to take this third one, or this is completely meaningless that I'm coming to Konar. All right, let's see what we got. I'm spinning the wheel one more time. Okay, I can live with that. 139 jellies in the Fremnik Slayer dungeon. It's not great. I think
that's not ideal.
I think on brand, I think I can burst those though, can't I?
The Fremnik is singles, I think.
Oh no.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's a rough one.
Don't do Konar, kids.
Yeah, that's pretty rough. Hopefully it's all right. Hard clues.
All right, so that is a great example of 3 of the bad Slayer monsters, but going back to the good ones.
Yeah, so back to the favorites. So like I personally I love smoke devils. So I've been truly blessed by smoke devil superiors, and I can only hope all of you Ironmen out there are just as blessed as I am. I have gotten 2 hearts and 3 gems, all from smoke devil superiors.
Wow.
And I am at 19 mil Slayer XP. So I can only hope blessings upon all the irons out there. Because as a stinky main, that went straight on the GE. And I didn't even think about it. So I feel bad.
So are you a smoke devil? So what's your thermi KC? Do you fully do just normal smoke devils?
I think I have some thermi KC. Let me see.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I keep talking about the game, but I just walked up and our very own Dills is at the farming guild with me.
Dills. So I have 200 thermi KC. So not much. It's there, but basically non-existent.
Okay. Wow. So that's interesting. So have you just not been interested in it, or do you just like normal smoke devils that much?
So I think it was like maybe one of my like first tasks. So I did thermi. It's all right. Like it's not my favorite boss. Like it's not really profitable. So when I say I like boss slayer, I like boss slayer with profit. So
Fair enough.
like, if it's gonna make me money, I'm gonna do it. If it's gonna be trash money and there's only really a pet chance, I'm probably not gonna really do it. So
Mhm.
so Thermi is one of those ones that you just don't really make a lot of money, and it's mainly just for pet chance, from my understanding. I mean, I'm sure there's like a little bit of GP, but it's not great. So I would just send like a couple of Thermi here and there for like a pet chance, and then I do the rest of my task on the small ones. And I think it was like one of my like first. I was like low 90. Like I had almost just unlocked Smoke Devils as like a viable task, and I pulled an imbued heart, and it was funny. I pulled it during a bingo that I didn't participate in, so there was no broadcast. And I remember typing. I said, "Are the clan broadcast turned off, or did I get kicked?" And everybody was like, "Oh no, the broadcasts are off." And I said, "Okay." I just got an imbued heart, smiley face, and then I just didn't say anything else. And so I just have a very vivid memory of the smaller smoke devils. So that's probably one of my favorite tasks, and they're really quick, and you can cannon them and stack them up. So you're not having to do the dart method. You basically are just cannoning and stacking. So it's like a really easy stackable task. So definitely that. And then I'll finish up my favorite tasks with the last two, but they're kind of one and the same. They're again mainly like the boss tasks. So I have a sweet spot for Cerberus, because that was like the first boss I really got into, and the first boss that made me money. But Cerberus took me forever to make money, so I didn't see a crystal from Cerberus until like I think it was like 600 something K, like low 600 KC. I didn't see a single crystal, and those are a 1 in 128 drop. But I was blessed with a primordial crystal. So it was definitely a sight well seen. So I was happy to get that prim. And then my next two, I would say, I do like Araxor, and I think it's up there. Like I'll put it on my list that I really like. I have some critiques in that I'd like to see like more Slayer bosses, kind of similar to Araxor, with a little bit more like high intensity. But Araxor is definitely up there. It's fun. It's you got to pay a little bit more attention than most Slayer bosses, but at the same time, it's a Slayer boss, so it's not super duper difficult. And then Dagonoths. I love DKs. They're great. I love doing the kings, so they're great.
I think what made Slayer my favorite skill was when I started getting to the point where I got the tasks that had boss variants. And I this is getting into another one of my biggest things with Slayer, but I like it. I'm trying to think of the best example. Dagonos is a great example of when okay, fine. I told Dills we were recording a podcast, and I said, "Hey, we just read your question," and he didn't respond and logged out. That hurt my feelings. Poor Dills. He's probably on the toilet. Sorry,
Did a quick farm run.
Yeah. Oh no, he logged back in. Okay, we're good.
Hey, he logged back in.
Anyways, but I think that is my absolute favorite aspect of Slayer is the stuff that stuff like Dagonos, even stuff like Black Demons, even though I just said I blocked them, but the kind of the things where it's a boss, but you also can kill like Dagonoth is actually the best example, I think, because you can kill DKs if you want to do bossing. You can cannon them if you want a fast task, or you can AFK them in like Corrend if you want to just chill out. And that is kind of what makes RuneScape so great, and especially Slayer, because that variance of being able to, chill out when you want to chill out, go hard when you want to go hard, is what separates this game from, every, I mean, not every other game, but so many other games, it's like, you know, Dark Souls or something, like you get on knowing you're going to have to go hard. Um, but like, yeah, RuneScape, you can tailor it to fit your mood. And so, yeah, Daganeth is like an S tier task just for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even really like DKs that much. But I love that. And I think that's when it really clicked for me why I love Slayer so much. Like Smoke Devils is so funny to me because I have almost exclusively killed Thermi on my main for Smoke Devil tasks. And that has not worked out well for me. I'm 4 times dry on the Smoke Battle staff. I haven't got the pet. I have 2000 KC. And Thermi's a really interesting boss. I do think it's funny. Some of the Slayer bosses, it feels like, well, I guess, once again, there's so many things in this game are like that, where they're just like that and nothing else is like that. But Thermi is such a cool boss where it's like, it's, I think, 2 tick typeless damage. So it just machine guns you and you can't protect against it. And there's like a lot of different methods that people use to do it. And I had to try all of them because I hated Thermi. And I kind of finally found this like mishmash of methods that I like, which is basically what it ended up being was I used a Sang staff and then stepped under. But if I, for those times when I got, 170 Smoke Devils and I killed 100 Thermi and just was over it, I grabbed my cannon and finished the task out at the normal Smoke Devils. And like that, I just love that. I love those tasks that have any kind of variance to them, like this is just probably just highlighting like my ADHD of, I do that with so many different bosses. Like, Black Demons are the same way. Like I kill like 50 demonic gorillas and I'm just like, oh, I forgot I hate demonic gorillas, and then just go finish it in catacombs or something. And those are all of the best tasks, are the ones that are, they have a boss and they have a mob variant. And yeah, I think that honestly, as far as my answer to that question are, yeah, all of the bosses that have a boss variant that you can kill if you choose to. Just such a cool kind of aspect of the game that I love.
Yeah, I think that's such a good mechanic by them, and such a great like thought process. Like, because you're so right. Like when you don't want to do the rest of your Thermi task at Thermi, just go cannon, or like you get to DKs and your trip lasts. You have like 100 DKs that you're assigned, and you only get to kill 85 of them in the DKs, and you don't want to do the trip back. So you just go and you kill 15 DKs somewhere else. You don't have to go back to the boss variants if you don't want to. And I love that. I think those tasks are like phenomenal S tier tasks.
Yeah.
That just gives you an option. Like, you want to chill tonight? Cool. Go do some chill DKs.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to, try to get the pets or go for the rings? Like, if they're meaningful upgrades, like, great. You get to go for the pets or go for the rings. Like, I think adding variety is what makes Slayer so great. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about that is we say all of that, and I'm wondering, I've been wondering recently, it kind of feels like they're moving away from that. Specifically the idea that Araxor is an Araxite task and not a spider task, which I get that you get Araxites as a task, and it is that same thing where you can kill the normal ones. But I don't know. There was a lot of talk in the community when they didn't make that just a doable on a spider task, that potentially they were trying to move away from, oh man, there was another boss recently they did that same thing with, where they didn't allow it to be a part of a Slayer task for something that it obviously is. And I'm blanking on it, but I hope they're not moving away from that, because yeah, that is so fun. And it's most of my like pitches for bosses have been something that could also be done as a Slayer variant of lesser Slayer tasks. I think one of the biggest things I've been pushing for, or suggesting, and once again, every JMod obviously listens to this podcast because they just put it in the game jam, is a troll boss. Because like thematically, I think it would be so cool to have a fight with a giant troll, but also something you could kill on a troll task, which is just the most nothing task ever. Um, and yeah, I would love to see like something for trolls, something for the other big one. I would love to see a chromatic dragon boss, because then we don't have to kill freaking steel and iron dragons anymore.
Yes. Yes, I agree.
The idea of some kind of like 5-headed dragon that has a head for each different, metal type that has a dragon available. I don't know, whatever that would be so cool. Cause yeah, adding that in so that if you wanted to, you could do, and that's the thing that's, also what we're talking about with, these variants is like, you're going to get much faster XP and much like better points per hour if you can in those smoke devils. But you're going to either have more fun or more GP going for the boss variant. So there is a good reason to do either of those. And so, yeah, it's like adding like a chromatic dragon boss. That's like, it's like a 3-minute fight for each kill. That's going to take you a lot longer than doing, well, steel dragons are a bad example because they take so freaking long anyways. But, like for a troll, like you can just power through a troll task in like 20 minutes. But, if you're killing 150 of whatever boss it was, it's not a cut and dry, like it's 100% better, but it would be so cool to have that option.
Yeah, I agree. And Trey, I absolutely hate to be this guy every single time, but I think, well, I should say, I know that you can kill a Raxor on a spider task.
Really?
Yes.
Oh no.
They did make the change.
Oh, they changed it. Okay, so initially, thank God.
When it launched, it was only Araxites, and then there's so much backlash that they ended up switching it to spider tasks as well. So you can, but I will say it kind of defeats the point of what you're saying, because what's weird about that is that you get an Araxite task or a spider task and you can kill one boss, but you can't, like, if you wanted to do like our little skit method that we were talking about, you have to either kill the spiders or the Araxite. I think that Araxites count as spiders, but spiders don't count as Araxites, if that's how you say that right. So like if you're assigned like 100 Araxite, you can't just go kill 100 spiders and skip the task. You have to kill those specific Araxite. Mm-hmm. But if you get 100 spiders, you could go kill Araxor or the Araxites. So it's kind of one of those like weird, like, why don't we just make it a spider task in general so that there's no like ambiguity between the two? I don't really understand why they don't just make it a spider. But I guess you have to unlock an Araxite task. So I don't really know.
Yeah, no, you lost me.
This is just a weird one.
Yeah, that is a weird.
This one is like a really weird niche like task, but I do think that they realized that they messed up bad, and so they allowed it on spider task. So
yeah, well, that's good. I love nothing more than those kind of tasks, and I feel like that you could set up a block list. Going back to that, you could set up a block list that is almost entirely avoids the things that don't have variants, because those really are like Sukas. Like I just did, Sukas are they're the most they're in a lot of ways they're the worst task, because not like they're so fast that it's kind of like when you get like 10 steel dragons, it's like I have to do it. I don't want to, but like I cannot justify skipping this. It's just so fast, and it's just this short little pang of misery. But
those were the first tasks that I ever blocked. I hate Suka. That's the freaking worst.
That's
dude.
Awesome.
And I remember like before I had my Slayer cape, I swear to you, I got them like 3 or 4 times in a row, and I said, "This is stupid." Straight on my block list, never turned back. Because I just hate.
Well, actually, the weight of those isn't. You should not do that efficiently. No. Now they've made some good changes though. One of the best changes they did was, or I guess not really changes, but sneaky additions. Was the spiritual mages at Nex. um, made the spiritual creatures task into a much better task. That went from something on the block list to something I would do every time, because you get a blowpipe, you turn on protect from mage, and you're just getting all kinds of runes and stuff. That turned into a really great task. I was a big fan of that change, and that's another, I guess another avenue to go with that is just adding the same kind of creature, but a little better. They kind of did that with the like armored zombies. They added the same
Mm-hmm.
creature but a little stronger. I guess everything in the catacombs of Corinth is kind of that same idea, just a little upgraded version. Once again, giving you some variability. If you want to, if you're able to kill something a little stronger, a little higher risk, higher reward kind of a thing. Like just filling in all of the gaps, as always a good thing.
Totally agree with that.
Yeah. Um, Yeah, so I think that's kind of all of the different like aspects of Slayer. And nobody, I didn't get anybody that said that our last episode was way too long, so I'm not gonna stress out too much about how long we've been talking here. Um, so the final thing I kind of want to get to with Slayer is just the future of Slayer, and like what changes we want to see, like what things we would love to do you know, we kind of hit that along the way with a lot of these, but anything that kind of fell through the gaps or any other things, you know, uh, updates that we would just love to see in Slayer. Do you have anything for that?
Yeah, so I kind of have a little list here of things that I would love to see change in Slayer.
Okay,
So
I love it.
um, first thing in this is again, I haven't been an early game Slayer in a long time, so I'd love a little bit of insight on your end of things. But from what I remember, early game is trash, and
Hmm.
I feel like it would be so cool if they added kind of like what they're doing with like these mid game bosses, but do like a mid game Slayer boss with one of the lower tier Slayer masters. Like just something that gives a little bit more XP. It's a little bit more engaging than just going and killing some random monster that means nothing. Like giving some sort of a low Slayer boss that it's not going to be super duper profitable, but might have a drop here or there that's worth like a mill or two or something like that. And it has a cool pet, like, make something that's like kind of engaging and fun for low level Slayer to help boost it a little bit. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, there's like basically nothing, like none of the new bosses that came out are able to be done on Slayer task. So like, are the free to play bosses are can you do those on Slayer task? Like, if you get a hill giant, can you kill Obor? In
Uh,
that count as Slayer?
I don't know. I'll look it up while you keep talking. I have no idea.
Okay. But I think that would be super interesting. Like, just make the early game Slayer a little bit better. And like I said, it hasn't been recent, but I at some point in like during the COVID-ish era, I decided that, oh, you know what? Everybody has an alt, so I'm gonna make an alt account, and that died very quickly as soon as I started doing Slayer, and I realized just how bad early game Slayer is. Literally dropped the account after I hit like 25 or something like that Slayer because I was like, "Yep, this is not great, and I'm not really enjoying this."
So my
Um,
chance, this is my chance to fact check you. Yeah,
yes.
yes, you can, both of
Okay.
Obor and Bryophyta, you can. And I was looking because I'm still trying to remember which one I was thinking of, but Scurious was just like Araxites. It was originally not able to be killed on a rat task, and then they changed it
Mhm.
later.
Okay. So that makes it a little bit better then. I'm happy that those changes are made. I will say about Obor and Bryophyta, you have to have keys for those,
Hmm.
which is super hard to grind for, and you only get to kill like maybe one or two on task if you're lucky, because those tasks I don't think are very large. Maybe they are, but I would assume you're maybe killing one or two of those on a low level task. So maybe something sort of similar to Scurious, where like just giving like a little bit of variety. So it's not just Scurious that you can do, but throw in another like low level Slayer boss for whatever creature, just to give like a decent amount of XP. You get to learn some mechanics, and it's not like really boring Slayer. It's like you get to actually do something meaningful and kill something with like decently high HP for good XP.
Yeah, and I
And
think
again, doesn't have to be super efficient. Just makes it more fun.
I think kind of tying in what we were saying earlier too with that is like they've been doing such a good job releasing these lower level
Yeah.
bosses, and I wish
Hmm.
that their like their design standpoint started from like, hey, let's take a low level Slayer monster and tie it in with that. Like I don't think any of the Varlamore stuff ties in with Slayer. Like that Moxley Auto boss, I don't like if that had been. I mean, it would have been great. Make that a freaking water fiend. Kill that on a water fiend
Yeah.
task. Like that would have been,
Or like an Ice Warrior or something
oh
like
yeah,
that,
yeah.
Like, yeah, I agree with that for sure. Because they are doing such a great job with the early to mid game. Like, I don't really engage in any of the content, but I've heard it's like phenomenal. And like these bosses are really fun when you are like in the early to mid game. So yeah, I'd love a little bit of love for that, category just to make Slayer better, because Slayer's so fun once you like get to the late game of Slayer. It's so fun. It's such a great skill that like I think that they have the potential to do that in early game or mid game by adding just maybe another boss here or there. And you could, like I said, you could even make it specific to like a certain Slayer master. So like some of the ones that never get used, make them have a really high weight for this task that you can do a boss variant, or you can do the like AFK version of it. I think that's perfect. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, and it's something else that's really killer with low level Slayer is you're going to Turiel, and Turiel, the reason that people Turiel skip is because Turiel gives such short, small tasks. And I think that
Mhm.
the worst thing about that as a low level is, you have to kill 15 of something, but you're a low level. You can't teleport, you can't zip around the world. So you have to like, home teleport to Lumbridge, walk to Lumbridge Swamp, then you forget your torch, you got to walk back and you get your torch, you forgot a rope, then you finally get down there and you kill 15 of these things, and then you have to like do a mini game teleport to the Birth Up Games room to get back to Turiel. And I think all of that is a part of why early level Slayer is so rough. Um, and I that wasn't related at all to what you were saying, but just a random side note of what makes early game Slayer so painful.
Yeah, no, and that's what I'm wanting to touch on as well, is like adding variety to a Slayer Master, so you're not having to go just a Turiel, just to do 15 spiders that you have to takes 10 minutes to get out to the spider location and then 5 minutes to get back to Turiel. Like, yeah, just make a variety of Slayer Masters usable for low level and make it fun and worth it. I think that, would be just phenomenal, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
So, another thing on a completely different topic, that would be a suggestion for me is, it's, while in addition to having the block list, I think there should be some sort of a preferred task list where like you can add like maybe +1 or +2 weighting, to any task that you like absolutely love.
Oh God, my points
I don't
can't
think
handle
that
it. I don't have enough points.
I don't think that it should be like you should be able to do that with a lot of tasks, but I think like maybe giving the ability like maybe like 1 or 2 tasks and like tie it in with maybe like combat achievements. Like once you do like an easy or medium or hard even combat achievements, you get like the ability to do like one preferred task at the cost of like 100 Slayer points, and then you can interchange that if you like want to prefer another task later on. Kind of sort of similar to like how the block list is now, but it just adds a little bit more heavy weight to whatever task you're wanting to, whatever you're wanting to do. So I don't know. I think that'd be interesting, and it like just kind of help get to the task that you want. And it doesn't help a lot, but like you kind of said, where even if it's like a 0.01% higher chance somewhere else, like that's where we're going to end up going because we're hyper efficient. So I think that would be just kind of a nice little like touch to, I don't know, just have like your favorite task be a little bit higher weighted so you can do your favorite stuff.
Hmm.
So, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. I my first thought when you said that was like, well, could you make general boss tasks a preferred task? Because that would almost tie back into the whole, boss slayer master. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to think of how that instead of like just being a kind of mirror to the block list, I'm trying to think of what would be an interesting way of doing that. I'm not sure, but it would
I
be
think the caveat would be anything that's purchasable, you're not allowed to do it as preferred. So, like if you have to purchase it with Slayer points, like a boss, like Araxites or
Jad. Yeah.
your Jads, you can't make that preferred.
Hmm.
But like on the default list of tasks, you can prefer like Hellhounds or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like so, it's not super duper OP so that you're always getting like a boss since it's such a high weighting. But like it just adds a little bit of like, okay, you're more likely to get a Hellhound task now that you have this
Yeah.
+1 weight to it.
Well, yeah, and it'd be interesting if it was just like this is your one preferred task, 'cause that would mean it would be something that would probably like oscillate, and change over time. Because yeah, like for right now,
Hmm.
my preferred task would be basilisks, and then once I get to the jaw, my preferred task will change to something else. And I don't know if there's really a market for a need in the game for a point sink, but that would be a very effective point sink is, as
Hmm.
people are going for different things, you could set your preferred task. But yeah, I think limiting it to, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, like not the best of the best. Cause I think for probably most end game players, they'd probably stick it on Hydra and leave it there for a long time. And maybe that could also be a thing. Like it could be 30 points to set a preferred task, and then that gets used up when you get that task, and you have to buy it again or something. That could be interesting too.
Yeah, that's an interesting mechanic. Yeah,
I don't know that, but no, that would be. I could see something like that being really cool.
yeah. Um, I think that's basically. Oh no, okay. I do have one more thing to add. And this may be a little bit more of a tangential topic as well,
Hmm.
but and again, love to hear like your specific thoughts on it. But so this whole podcast, I've talked about how much I love Slayer bosses and how it's my favorite content, like favorite skill and everything like that. Um, when I talked about Araxor in the very beginning, I think Araxor is one of the first Slayer bosses that is actually like pretty engaging.
Hmm.
When it comes to like you have to like pay attention to Araxor. Hydra would be like the next, tier that I would think of. But Hydra really is just count to 3 or wait till that the Hydra head shake and then switch prayer. And that's like really all you have to do with Hydra. Araxor, you got to kind of deal with the spiders on the outside and dodge the poison pools and like all that fun stuff. And there's like the mechanic at the very end where you can step under and it deals damage to itself. So like Araxor is a really cool boss because it's pretty engaging as a Slayer boss, and I don't think there's any other Slayer boss as engaging as Araxor. And so my suggestion is to just continue to make Slayer bosses, you know, more engaging. Like there is a place for a chill Slayer boss, but there's also a good place for a boss that you have to engage with for whatever gear upgrade that is associated with that boss. Um, I think probably Cerberus is like the next best one because
Hmm.
you're having to prayer flick between the ghosts and like each Slayer boss kind of has their like little niche thing that you do that you got to pay attention and then you can kind of look away and then you can pay attention and look away. But I think it'd be interesting to have a boss that is just engaging, more engaging, just similar to Araxor. Because I really enjoyed Araxor. I think it's really great content. I think I've done like 700 Araxor since release, and I've pretty much enjoyed all of it. It's been a really fun boss. So
Yeah, yeah,
But
no.
yeah, I don't know if you have any like thoughts on like, your takes on like the Slayer bosses, like if you think they're like perfect as is, or like, maybe in the future, like adding a little bit more difficult ones and a little bit easier ones and kind of like, just balancing it out.
I mean, Slayer bosses, mirror, just like everything else in this game. They're always such a snapshot of the time in which they were released.
Mm-hmm.
And Araxor is the most mechanically intensive because it's the most recent one. Um, Whereas, Kraken is a stand there and shoot boss because that's, what bossing was back in the day for RuneScape. Um, so I do think that I don't think we're ever. I don't know. It's interesting. I can't remember which J mod it was getting some flame because they mentioned like they would like to see another boss like Kraken in the game. But I completely agree with that. I I I want to see both sides of it. Like I love mechanically intensive bosses and I love stand there and shoot bosses. Um, and I think we will. I don't think they're going to release any bosses that aren't going to have some kind of unique mechanic. I think what I want to see less of um, is a boss like Cerberus, where it's stand there and shoot and then pay attention just for this one moment. Those are the hardest for me to like stay engaged with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You could almost say the same thing about Hydra, where it's like you're saying count to three, and then it's like, oh man, it's Jad phase. I have to kind of pay attention. Um, but that it's just that weird thing that I don't know. I always, it's just so interesting. Like something like Zulrah is so interesting to me because I can't even put my finger on why that's so much more fun than other bosses. But I think the like that consistent engagement. Um, and it's funny because I really can't. I have never killed a Raxor. It came out, after I did Slayer on my main and before I'm able to kill it on my iron. So I am interested. I'm excited to kill it when I can. Especially, oh my god, that Nox Halberd will be so good for my account. But yeah, comparing, so I'm basing it off of the other similar things they've released recently. But yeah, I think that whatever Slayer boss we get in the future will be more mechanically intensive. And I hope that they can do that around the board, adding for all different skill levels. I just that even tying in with your first point about low level stuff, like I've mentioned a million times on this podcast how much I love, the stuff that the mid-level bosses with the early game mechanics. And yeah, tying that in with Slayer, just the icing on the cake.
Yeah, 100%. And I do agree with your point that like, I said I love Cerberus because it really was like the first boss that I got into, but 100% I wholeheartedly agree that bosses that you can kind of like turn your brain off a little bit for, but then you have to come back in, always feel terrible. Like
Yeah.
anything you do like that, where you can kind of like look away for a second and then you got to look back, then you can kind of look away. No one really likes that content. Like
Yeah.
we, as a community, most of us, I would say, and maybe I'm just speaking for myself, or maybe I am speaking for the community. I either want it to be AFK or I want to be actively playing. I don't really like the in between of like I sort of kind of have to pay attention. Um, like raiding is like a great example. Like you have to stay focused wholeheartedly during raiding. But I also, when I was grinding 99 woodcutting, I loved redwood logs. Oh my lord, I loved chopping redwoods because it was just so AFK. It was like click once for 10 minutes and come back and click again. And it's just like,
Yeah.
dude, that is such good content. Like, it is exactly what I want. Whereas, like, Motherlode Mine, which a lot of people don't enjoy a lot, like, most people would, I would say, prefer shooting stars. But Motherlode Mine is like, click here, maybe in 10 or maybe in, 60 seconds. You'll never know when this ore is going to really deplete. It's going to be kind of randomized. And I feel like no one really likes that content. Like, you either want to be AFK or you want to be like paying attention. I don't think there's like but again, maybe I'm just speaking for myself. Like I hate the in between. I'm like, I either want to fully play this game or I don't want to play this game at all, and I just want to sit there and click one thing.
Yeah.
So.
No, I from what I've seen in the community, I think everybody kind of feels that way, and that's why the kind of the journey I went on with mixology was like I was such a big defender of it when it came out, because it's kind of a fun little puzzle. But once that puzzle's solved, it is a grind of it's a tithe farm kind of grind where you're having to pay 100% attention in the game. Nothing does itself for you. You have to do every input. There's very little downtime, especially if you're doing the speedier mechanics on the tables. But it's not engaging. There's once you kind of get a rhythm of it, like once you get the like how you're going to do it and figure it out, it is full. Like it's almost like your body is fully in, but your brain isn't engaged. And that's the worst kind of content. But yeah, no, I think people, the community 100% agrees with that. And I mean, especially the AFK side of thing. I mean, yeah, it's funny. I mean, I think that's what we're pushing for as a community. There's the people want skilling to be super AFK. They want a lot of things to be either super AFK or high level bossing. I mean, those are the biggest things that are happening in the game right now. And I think I don't know. They're kind of doing that, but I think they also don't want skilling to just be standing there and doing something. So some of these, like, oh, don't get me started on forestry, but all that kind of stuff. Well, yeah, those are, I think I would agree with all those suggestions. I'd like to see what those could be. My approach to a Slayer change, I have a list, but I think we've kind of touched on all of them except for one. I have a quest that I would like to tie in with Slayer, and I think the reward space for it could be any of the things that we've talked about. Like I think a great way if they were going to add some of these things to Slayer would be, hey, here's this new quest, and you have to do the quest to unlock these new things. So it's not like, you don't get that feeling of, oh, well, if I had known about this yesterday, I would have waited to do this kind of thing. It's like, oh, you still have to unlock it. Okay, so here we go. So I couldn't come up with a great name for this quest, but right now I have it. It's called Smoking Ham. So basically what happens is you get a Slayer task from somebody, and for the first time ever, you ask why. They say go kill 100 black demons, and you're like, why though? And long story short, the quest is finding out that that the Slayer Masters are being controlled by Ham, Humans Against Monsters, the KKK of RuneScape, and you're basically finding out this dark influence that's been over Slayer, and it's like this whole population control that's coming from these Ham members that are using the Slayer Masters, you through the Slayer Masters to kill all these creatures, and getting to the bottom of that conspiracy. And that's pretty much it. But I've always thought that it's like there's this organization that is literally, against monsters, and you just have these people that are sending you to kill monsters. And yeah, I don't know. There could be a lot of fun stuff with that, and it would lead to kind of like a tonal shift in the way that Slayer Masters assign tasks, and it could be a great way of working in a Slayer rework. And a side note that could come from this quest, and something that has not been mentioned at all in this 3-hour podcast. Why there's 3 Slayer tasks that should not be in the game.
Yep.
There's elves and there's dwarves, which is just go kill people. Which is such a strange thing. It's unlike anything else in the game. It is. I see that only coming from a Ham member that would assign you to kill elves. It just feels so wrong. And then the third one is something that should never be assigned, which is dogs. When they say go kill dogs,
get them out
like,
of here.
What the fuck?
I'll sit on that task forever. I would never do it.
Oh, I'll do it in a heartbeat because it's part of tutorial skipping. But yeah, every time I'm assigned to go kill dogs, I look at my dogs. I'm like, not you. These are they're like desert jackals. It's different, I promise. But
These are aggressive, I promise.
yeah, no, they're not. I have to search them out and kill them. But anyways, that was my one out of the box suggestion is to uncover the Slayer Masters as all being a part of a ham conspiracy, and using that to justify some kind of Slayer rework in whatever form that would take.
That is a really good suggestion.
All right,
you should honestly go. You should go pitch that. Honestly,
all right. I'm flying.
I was all ears. I'm here for you to just tell the whole story. I was like, man, he's actually cooking right now. That's pretty good.
My one other.
So no.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
My one other suggestion. My one Slayer Master I thought would be cool would be something I don't like Konar for multiple reasons, but the thing about Konar that makes no sense to me is she always says you need to bring balance to this, you need to bring balance to this. And I get that she's like talking about, more of like a metaphysical balance, but I think it would be a lot cooler if Konar was based in balance, if she actually gave you 2 tasks and you could pick between them. And if one was a like Duradel level task and one was a Turiel level task, so it was like, go kill, 150 smoke devils or go kill 40 dogs. And it's like, okay, I don't really feel like doing smoke devils right now. So it's almost like the skips would be built into it and it would be super overpowered. So there'd have to be some caveat there. But I always thought that would be a cool idea of like, you can do this kind of almost skip of a task, this really fast task, or maybe this bigger one is the task you want. So yeah, that's my one pitch for like a different kind of Slayer Master.
Yeah, the only issue that I would have with that is at that point just Turiel skip, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So like you have the option and it's like, okay, I'll just Turiel skip.
That's fair.
but it would be cool if it would keep your streak. So like I could see it where like, it's not as high of a weight of points or doesn't reward you as many points as Konar does. Maybe it's like the same as Duradel, or like maybe a little bit less than Duradel, because then it would just be Duradel and Turiel skip. Mm-hmm. So if it's less than Duradel, but you still keep your task streak, I think that would be, definitely like doable and cool. So
yeah, all right.
Good pitch though.
I'll take it. It didn't get as much of a resounding, optimism as my first pitch, but that's okay. That's okay. We'll get there. Cool. Well, yeah, that's what these episodes are called All About, and I feel like we are really leaning into the all about. Another huge episode. This is the first time recording this podcast I've ever been like, I need to be done because I'm tired because it's just the time we're recording it. But yeah, I mean, obviously I said it last time, but I guess I didn't hear anything the first time, but let me know if this is just way too long of a podcast and if we're just rambling on. I'm having a great time recording it. I'm having a great time talking about it, and I hope everybody is having a great time listening to it. Yeah. So is there anything Slayer related from that you'd like to get in before we're done, Mitty?
It's not Slayer related, okay, but I did promise my wife that I would give her a shout out.
Oh, hell yeah.
So she is very excited for me to be on the pod. So been a long time listener forever. She's heard me talk about you guys, and she hears me on Discord like almost every night talking to y'all. So shout out to my wife and my daughter, and yeah, that's probably all I got to say there. Love Slayer. It's a great skill.
Hell yeah. Yeah, so I remembered listening back to the last episode, I realized that if I'm going to be hosting the podcast, I have to actually do some of the podcast hosting things. So, all that to say, we have an in-game clan, the Wild in-game. Come join the clan. You will see every person that's been guesting on this podcast recently, hanging out in there. We have a Discord, Wilderness Podcast on Discord. Once again, all of us will be in there chatting away. My wife just joined. Speaking of wives, my wife joined the Discord so she could be a part of the our Skill and Chill movie nights we've been doing. And she was like, "Good, now I know what you. Now I can see all the stuff you're talking." And she literally yesterday she said, "I see that you posted this response to somebody in Discord at 9:30, but I texted you 8:30, but you didn't respond till noon." And I was like, "Oh no."
Oh no.
Yeah. All she said was good morning, but anyways, come and hang out in Discord, come and hang out. We're always in VC running stuff. Come learn some raids. There's a lot of people who've been doing leagues that have been doing their completely broken raids that will hopefully be coming in soon to learn in the main game. Hopefully, speaking of that, hopefully coming up soon is a leagues related all about episode. Everybody I've talked to wants to finish leagues before they do it though, so we'll get there. And I should have prepped because you can go to Buy Me a Coffee for Dills, and the Patreon I believe is up and running. I should probably research those things before I shout them out, but those things are there. And yeah, so anything else? Let me think. I don't know. Well, it's a step-by-step process. So yeah, Mitty, as seen on Behe, thank you so much for coming, and talking to me, for freaking 3 hours. Yeah, I hope to see you back. I think our next episode, if I can, get the person to record with me, will be our first returning person, to talk about something that's not PVM. So those are 2 teases in one. But yes, anyways, Mitty, thanks so much for coming on. I hope you,
of course, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. No.
Oh yeah, it was a great time.
And yeah, I hope that everybody had a great time listening to it. I literally have no idea if this is interesting to listen to. I just have to trust that if I'm interested in talking about it, the people will be interested in listening to it. But all that to say, yeah, thank you so much for listening. And the other thing about hosting this podcast is that we should end on a song. So I will, because I obviously didn't prepare this, I will find a Slayer related song that will play us out. And so thanks everybody for listening, and we will be back as soon as possible. So, bye.